What is the most blatant lie that a salesperson told when trying to make a sale? My grandma was told she should get a faster internet subscription because she lived on a hill and the electrons struggled to get up to her. I asked a hot dog vendor in New York City how to find the subway. Then I tried to purchase a Pepsi. Knowing that I was a tourist, he asked for $5. I said, "The sign says $2.50. And he says, "Oh, that's for the warm ones. This one's cold, so it's $5. At a market in Mexico, I asked, "Hey, what's this thing made out of? Wool?" Salesperson said, "Yes, of course." "Oh, I'm allergic to wool." "Oh, it's not wool." The similar thing happened to me in China. The salesperson said, "This is carved out of real elephant tusk. That's why it's so expensive." I said, "Oh, that's terrible. The poor elephant." Salesperson then switches tack. "Oh, just kidding. It's hard plastic. $10 and it's yours." "Oh, those are disposable flash drives for $4. They really only work a couple of times. What you really want is one of the competitor's drives for $15. Talking to a D-Link representative on the phone. They go, "Yeah, what you need to do is update the firmware on your router, but for us to install the update for you, we'll have to charge you for the service." I said, "Oh, okay, I just found the update on your website. I just have to download and install it, right? I can do that myself." No, if you do that without our help, you could destroy your router. With the file from your website, following the directions from your website. Yes. This random guy in a van outside my house trying to sell steaks. "Hey dude, you live here?" Yeah, what do you need?" "I have a bunch of leftover meat and I need to get rid of it. You can just have it for free." "Oh sure, come on in." He enters the house. "Okay, here's our prices." "I thought you said it was free." "Well, at these prices, it's practically free. Get out." You should really be careful about letting strangers into your home, no matter how tasty their meat is. Some of them just want to get a peek inside in case they want to break in later. The last commenter raises a valid point. We should be as careful in our choice of hookups as we are with shifty guys offering to give us free quality goods, no matter the size, juiciness, and girth of their meat. When convincing my grandmother to buy boots for a 2-year-old in advance, the saleswoman said that by next year, no store whatsoever is going to be selling baby shoes, and they'll be impossible to find. I should mention that I was in the store with her, which means this wasn't a matter of misinterpretation. She just blatantly told us that baby clothing stores were closing and shoes would not be sold anywhere. Also, my grandmother is not a native English speaker, which could be why the woman was trying to scam her. This car saleswoman tried to sell me on an option that, and I quote, "the Canadian Navy uses to prevent rust on their ships." I'm in the Canadian Navy, and no, we don't. The look on her face was almost worth paying more, though. "Another Canadian Navy guy here. I brought a new cell phone from Bell, and they threw in a screen protector that the salesman described as military grade. I laughed and joked to my wife that this meant it would be low quality and probably fall off within a week. Joke was on me. It fell off within a day. A kid I work with told a customer a certain bike was really strong because of its tectonic plates. I was having my laser eye surgery consultation, and the salesman told me that the surgeon who specializes in my type of eye was in town for the next week, so I had to be quick. The worst part is that I believed him at first. So yeah, I went elsewhere and got the surgery, not because he lied, just because it was cheaper elsewhere. But I found out something about the whole process that some probably don't know. There really is no fixed price for laser eye surgery. They charge you exactly what they think you can or will pay. One of the first things they ask at the consultation is how much you have to spend on it. Not exactly a lie, but a salesman once tried to sell a set of knives. His selling point was, they contain ions. His sales target was my chemistry teacher. Nobody buys laptops anymore, they're outdated, a Best Buy employee said, trying their hardest to sell me a tablet. I told a Toyota salesman that I'd narrowed my choices to either the Toyota Camry or Honda Accord. He started telling me about how smooth the Camry's ride was, and then proceeded to tell me with great concern for my personal well-being that the ride of the Honda Accord was so rough that it could lead to internal bleeding. "And the cheapest HDMI cable we have is $30, but you don't want that one. It won't get the signal to the TV. You need one of these $60 cables over here." Best Buy, one of the many, many reasons that I don't shop there anymore. I had Skyrim pre-ordered at EB Games Canada, and I went in to cancel it and get a refund so that I could buy it on Steam. And this girl tried to convince me that Steam was shutting down soon in order to get the game from them for like $18 more. When I was a kid in the 80s, I distinctly remember a Sears salesman's pitch about a microwave. This was the early 80s, and not a lot of people had them. He told my parents that you could put a piece of apple pie in the microwave with the ice cream on top, and it would heat up the pie without heating up the ice cream. Bull crap. This college salesman at Fry's Electronics, who looked only a year or two older than I, tried to sell me one of the lower-tier laptops of one of Lenovo's newest lineups. I was trying to buy the best one from last year's lineup, the price of which had dropped dramatically since the newer lineup was released. The one I was trying to buy had better specs all round and was cheaper. The employee tried to convince me that Blu-rays look better on the other 720p screen than on my model's 1080p. Customers who bought my model returned it and complained about its screen. Also that I shouldn't buy the model I wanted with the graphics card because it's not worth the electricity that it will drain up. Objective. That the newer model has a faster processor because how they arranged the circuits. Research I did before shopping showed that both processor models were the same, but in-store one chip was marked with an M. And after he knew he wouldn't change my mind, he said that the one that I wanted was out of stock. I called bullcrap and later asked another employee who said that they had two left. By the way, this was considered bait and switch, which is fraud. I told them that employee X had said it was out of stock, and they made him bring me what I wanted from the back. F employee X. Don't worry, this will last you a lifetime. You need to buy an Apple display for your MacBook Pro. They aren't compatible with all these myriad displays on the shelves right here, said a Best Buy employee. Around 2003 at Best Buy, my sister was about to buy a computer. The sales rep said that if she didn't buy and install Norton antivirus, about $80 at the time, that her computer would run 50% slower. I laughed and told him to his face that was bullcrap, and then we left. You know, guys, I'm beginning to get the vague idea that Best Buy may not in fact be the best place to buy. Granted, some of these stories are a little older, but I'm curious about whether their modern salesmen have the same reputation for blatantly lying the way some of the ones in our stories do. Any recent encounters you guys want to share in the comments? I had someone press my doorbell. I reminded them of the "No Canvassers" sign below my doorbell, to which she replied, "It's okay, I'm not here to sell you a painting." Here in the southern US, it's a "No Solicitors" sign with an additional handwritten sign that says, "That includes religion." I'm not hating on religion, but we get so many door-to-door people here, and I don't want to deal with them the same way I don't want to deal with someone trying to sell me a vacuum cleaner or a newspaper subscription. This wristband releases positive/negative ions to counter the negative/positive ions in your body and make you stronger. I was given both versions of the positive or negative by different people selling. Fake power balance wristbands. To clarify, the people that I found were not selling the bracelets branded as Power Balance, but another imitation of that. I even had a look on the Power Balance website and they mentioned about imitation Power Balance bracelets being sold. Scammers hating on scammers. This car is pulling to the left a little bit. Oh, that's in case you fall asleep at the wheel. The car will steer itself towards the median rather than off the side of the road. Oh good, I've always liked safety features designed to cause head-on collisions. Bro, these HDMI cables are a new release from Japan. They apparently transfer 100% of the image without losing any detail, meaning your DVDs will look like Blu-rays. I had the following exchange with the last car salesman that I dealt with. As you can see, it has nitrogen-filled tires. You know what that does, right? Not a whole hell of a lot in practice? Oh no, it does. You know how with an air-filled tire you can get a blowout? That's the oxygen inside actually exploding. With nitrogen, you don't have that problem. That's not even a little true. Oh, we don't have any of those. We have these things that are 10 times more expensive. Yes, we do, because I work in the warehouse for this company. I worked at a restaurant one time and my manager told all the service staff we were out of all the cheap wines in a ploy to get us to sell the more expensive stuff. It's entirely possible this store had an equally D-bag manager. You know what's not good for sales? Telling customers you're out of everything they try to order all night, thinking they'll buy something more expensive. Instead, everyone just skipped the wine and we lost out on what would have been sales. I watched a guy a few days ago try to sell a kid more drum heads than he needed. You know, you need to replace your bottom heads just as often as you replace the top heads, or you'll never be able to tune them. They might not tune to professional quality, but that doesn't mean you have to drop $80 every few weeks on them. And on a bit of a tangent, I hate when places advertise something for cheap to get you in the door, don't stock it, and then try to upsell you on a similar item. Yeah, we're out of that $250 laptop, but this $1,200 gaming laptop is just what your grandmother needs to surf the internet. It drives me up the wall. You get what you pay for. He was trying to sell me a $200 HDMI cable. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe. My recruiter told 17-year-old me that my unit would never get deployed. We did. I was here to say this exact same thing. First pep talk in boot camp was, "Your recruiter was a lying piece of crap. Welcome to the military." So true. While I was in basic, I heard a story about some guy being told by his recruiter that they don't shave heads anymore. At Best Buy. Of course this Nikon lens will go right with your Canon body, no problem. Most camera equipment is universal. I had to tell him, no, you're wrong. I bought a pretty expensive vacuum cleaner from a home goods store, and when I got it home and tried it out, it made this ear-piercing whistling noise. I brought it back to return it, and the salesman, trying to keep the sale, told me that all high-end vacuum cleaners made that sound. That's how you knew it was moving air at maximum power. I got my money back, he lost his commission, and I went elsewhere. After botching the install of a side mirror which caused the window to leak, the dealership told me that my car wasn't designed for high-pressure car washes. I told him that was bullcrap, but he kept calling me little lady, so I bolted. I had my dad call as a last resort, and lo and behold, they fixed the window seal properly. When I was buying a car, one salesman at a used car shop blatantly told me that I'm not allowed to test drive any cars before I buy them because it's against insurance laws. Right. They told me that they actually owned the furniture they were selling to me. I paid for furniture at a furniture store. I was promised it would be delivered from the warehouse in a week. The floor models were just the demo. I came to find out they were in the process of bankrupting when I made my purchase. All the employees knew this, but they wanted to get any commission on sales that they could. Another liquidation company already owned everything. To get our money back, we had to fight the charge with the credit card company. Ended up getting every cent back, luckily. I was at a crappy car dealership looking at an older Jeep Wrangler. It was a 4-cylinder, and I was looking for an inline 6. The sales guy told me he could sell me a conversion kit to add 2 cylinders to the engine. Now, I'm not trying to sell you anything, but you know, we were actually told to say this in the narrator's one door-to-door sales job, and even though on some level it was true because we were subscribing them to a service, I mean, it's still deceptive. We're taking away their money. I'm glad I sucked at that job. Oh, Windows 8 has no bugs because it's based on older versions, unlike the previous Windows operating systems, said the Best Buy employee managing the computer department. It's been proven to cure cancer, some lady trying to sell me some ointment. We integrate seamlessly with Outlook. I record all calls I make, and after we'd purchased said product and were trying to implement the Outlook integration, I called their support team only to find out that they in the future planned to make Outlook integration a thing. It was not something they offered now. So I got my panties in a bunch and I called the sales guy who claimed he never said that. Got a manager on the line who said he never would have said that. I must have misheard or misunderstood. I told them I'd recorded all the calls, with their permission, and I'd be reviewing my recordings to confirm if I'd misheard. And they were like, yeah, you do that. So I called them the next day and played them the recording of him explaining in detail just how great the Outlook integration currently was definitely available at the level of service we were paying for, and that if we had any issues, their support would love to help us out. So they were like, fine, sue us. So we did. It was excellent. They settled, so it didn't go to court or anything, but it was really satisfying. Also, don't mess with me when I say I record calls. I am not crapping you, and I will look that crap up. The woman who took her clothes off for money said, I really like you. You're different from the other guys that come in here. Plot twist, I'm that woman. At the vet's with my dog, his wife is trying to sell me this super expensive dog food. I'd already taken a sample home and fed some to my dog, but she didn't really like it, so I told her that. Her response was that, dogs have no taste buds. I just looked at her with a mix of surprise and disgust, and I walked out without a word. Oh, that's not a pyramid, that's a multi-level market. I was invited out to a job interview one time. The first part of it was an orientation in a rented warehouse district office, where they spent the first half an hour or more explaining with a slideshow how they weren't a pyramid scheme and what they were doing was totally legal. Yep, thanks, bye, don't call me again. If you get the gold-plated cables, they'll protect your TV from getting viruses. I work for a satellite TV company and I get free service. So I said to a Comcast caller, I get my TV service for free. Only way I'd switch is if you paid me to use your service. Can you do that? The agent said, yes, we can. Alright, have a good day, bye. That Norton Antivirus is an excellent program, when in reality it's a goddamn virus itself. In Best Buy, they told me that if I didn't get the additional $30 charger for my iPod, the included USB charger would shorten my iPod's battery life with each use. Lies! She didn't really lie, but did a bad job of selling me something. I was going into a store looking for some boots, and I asked her for them in a size 9, and she straight up tells me, oh, so you can try them here and buy them online? I was like, no, I might want to buy them here. Then when I do try the boots on, she starts telling me the shoes I came in with were complete crap and low quality. At this point, I'm like, what the frick? You unappreciative idiot. Tell me where on the internet you can go and have people crap on you for what you're wearing while you're just trying to buy something nice for yourself. Can you get this experience anywhere else, huh? Real estate agent tried to tell me that the house I was looking at wasn't on a slab. I was like, okay, show me the basement. Fricking idiot. I was at Best Buy with my grandmother helping her purchase a laptop. The person who was following us around, trying to sell us on computers and software, had something to say about everything I suggested to my grandma. I'm not incredibly educated with laptops, but I know that my grandma wanted a basic computer for internet, email, and stuff, so I found a Toshiba for around $350 that was perfect for her. And he said, Toshibas are known for getting viruses and freezing up. I suggest this $600 HP. I said, no, my grandma isn't paying $600 for a laptop she doesn't need. She wants basic. This is basic. She doesn't want a bunch of added crap. She sided with me and got the Toshiba. Then he tried selling her an antivirus. Norton is the best and most reliable when it comes to protecting your computer. And at $80 a year, you're getting such a deal. Screw that. I told my grandma I'll get her an antivirus at the low cost of her famous homemade chili. 1.5 years with that Toshiba and Microsoft Security Essentials, and she's had no problems. In short, screw the rude employees at Best Buy. Enlarge your member in just 3 weeks. It took 6 weeks, the liars. Some portly gentleman once sold me a chocolate bar and told me it would keep my face from getting any uglier. In retrospect, I think he was lying. Sadly, it took the narrator several days after he found the answers for this script to determine that this was in fact a SpongeBob reference and not a real-life story. I've been down a deep YouTube rabbit hole trying to work out the context after people replied to this initial comment with a whole bunch of obscure remarks about the chocolate also bringing world peace or rubbing it on their face to make them live forever. Oh, internet. Oh, these bright blue pants look really good on you. I'm a straight male and she was lying. They look fabulous on me. My refrigerator died, so I went to Lowe's looking for a new one. My wife and I found a model we liked and started talking to the floor rep about it. We ended up buying it and he started trying the typical upsell for the warranty. One of the features of the warranty was that if the fridge died, Lowe's would compensate you for up to $200 worth of food. That sounded like a pretty good deal, since my daughter has food allergies and we have to shop at Whole Foods a lot, so it gets expensive. I started focusing on that and asked what would happen if the entire neighborhood lost power for a few days. Oh, I mean Lowe's will still compensate you. So you're telling me that if the fridge still works fine but the power lines are down or something, that Lowe's will still compensate me for up to $200? Yep. Even though the fridge itself didn't break but it was the fault of the power company? Yep. It's a good deal, right? That is a good deal. I'll take the warranty. A year later we had a snowstorm and the power was out for 3 days. Lowe's refused to compensate us. My wife and I spent several hours on the phone with the service reps, and they said that's not part of the warranty and that the sales reps know better than to say something like that. We called the original store and we were told the exact same thing. In short, a Lowe's sales rep lied to my wife and I to get us to buy a warranty for a refrigerator. I refuse to shop at Lowe's anymore because of that. Anyone from Lowe's, if you're reading this, we're about to buy a new oven, microwave, and dishwasher. I just got done remodeling my kitchen and bought everything from Home Depot. And to all the people telling me I'm an idiot, I already know that. I was out of food money and several hours of my day. If you're not going to contribute something worthwhile, please just save your breath. Today I learned that all Best Buy employees are blatant liars. At guitar centers, some of the teenage drummers try to bullcrap me, thinking I'm just another starting drummer who doesn't know a flam from a floor tom. I know my crap when it comes to drums. I was in looking for a new drum set, seeing as I was upgrading from my starter set and I wanted a quality one. While I was looking around, one of the drum salesmen asked if he could help me, to which I replied no. He left me alone for a good 10 minutes until he came up again and started looking over my shoulder to see what I was looking at. It was a Gretsch Renown set that had maple wood. After a second, he says, "Yeah, maple is good wood, but honestly, the wood doesn't matter. I like birch because it doesn't warp as bad when you spill water on it, and it's a much more rich, natural sound." I literally walked out after hearing that, and I've never been back. There are so many things wrong with that statement that I can't support a place that hired people to spew garbage like that kid was.
What is your best met the high school jerk/bully as an adult story? I own my own gym and have for a few years now. I received a message one day from a familiar-looking name on the business's Facebook page from a woman asking to come try us out. We set it up, she comes in for an introduction. She's a very, very large and out-of-shape woman at this point. After about 5 minutes of working with her, it hits me that this lady used to be about half her current size and was an absolute bee back in her heyday. I decided not to bring it up to her as she appeared to be struggling in life and came to us in a time of need, and I took it, as I do with all of my clients, as a cry for help. Not to mention, I'm a grown man now, and that seemed pretty silly and insignificant in life today. Months later, during one of the classes, I noticed her struggling real hard, so I go over to offer some encouragement. As I lean down to say something to her, I notice she's crying faintly to herself. She looks up at me and quietly says, "Sorry for how nasty I was to you years ago, and thank you for doing this for me." Turns out an old mutual friend told her about my place and she recognized me as the owner and came to me on purpose. No, not a story of revenge or retribution, but she reached out to someone she was terrible to, and today, she's repurposed, and I find it to be quite inspiring. Not quite the same, but about 10 years ago, I caught my dad screaming at the TV. "This friggin' jerk got his own show! He was such a piece of crap when we were kids. He would beat you up for your lunch money, push you for no good reason, take your toys, and based on the way he acts now, it doesn't seem like he grew up much." He was talking about Paul Toodles Sr. from American Choppers. We met at a bar where a large number of our high school class happened to be. He described me as his arch enemy. I realized I hadn't even thought about him in 10 years. She got the whole middle school through junior high to call me gay. I was not gay. She is. She came out of the closet right after high school. I was a jerk in high school. Then I went through the karma-mandated fat phase. Made a guy's day when he saw me at work. I went from pretty dang fine in high school to man the harpoons. I'm also nicer. He came in and said, "Wow, the fanciful unicorn?" And I said, "Yep, does this make it feel better?" and spread out my arms. He responded, "Heck yeah, you were a jerk." I said sorry. I was pretty immature. And then we talked like normal adults. Moved to a new school in 7th grade and was doing fine. Making friends, good grades. Then somehow ran afoul of this bigger kid. He'd been held back a few times. Typical bully, pushed little kids into lockers, loved to torment girls, and ran with a pack of acolytes who adored and aped him. In Texas at the time, if a kid didn't like you, he, quote, called you out, challenged you to a fight after school. Well, Zed calls me out one day because I was a, quote, queer from New York. Clueless me, moved there from said New York where people are civilized, I said, sure, okay. A few days later, in front of his acolytes and a small group of my friends, he proceeds to beat the crap out of me. It was 7th grade, so the damage wasn't excessive, mostly to my pride. Spent the rest of middle school known as one of the guys Zed beat the crap out of. Fast forward about 7 years, home from college and going to the grocery store for mom. Who should I see bagging my goodies but Zed? Taking a look at him, I see a horrible scar running from the top of his head down around the back of his skull and neck and under his shirt. His face lights up when he sees me, and he says, in slightly slurred speech, "Hey, didn't we go to school together? We're friends from school, right?" He walks with me out to the parking lot, and as we walk, I learn that he had been hit by a car in high school while biking home one day. Accident required a half dozen surgeries, and it left Zed mentally impaired and a completely different person. He put my stuff in the car, shook my hand for a good 30 seconds, and kept asking me to, quote, come back and see me sometime. I had hated few people in my life to that point, and no one more than him. Almost cried driving home. I felt so bad for him and disgusted with myself for my previous hatred. I ran into somebody in high school that I used to pick on regularly when we were in first or second grade. We recognized each other, and I walked up to him. We exchanged a few words, since I hadn't seen him in close to 10 years, and then didn't talk again. But right before we parted ways, I apologized for the way I treated him as a child. I couldn't stress how sorry I was for being a piece of crap to him for no other reason than I felt like it. I still occasionally think about him and where he's at in life. I work in a jail. I've seen the, quote, popular kids on the other side of the bars. I ran into my high school bully at a gay bar a few years back. He was my bottom that night. One of mine was this kid named Patrick. One incident led to 2 of my ribs being broken when he jumped on my chest with his knees. Another resulted in a broken eye socket after being kicked in the face by him and 2 of his friends. Eventually, I moved in with my father and didn't see any of my old bullies again, except for a few. Some have been relatively nice, and some are jerks. During high school, I took some martial arts classes, Taekwondo. I was always a larger kid, but too timid to fight back, but martial arts helped me to overcome that. Fast forward to a year or 2 after high school, and I go over to visit my mother. She had moved in with a real jerk who was into God knows what. And guess who's there? Patrick. He's now almost a foot shorter than me, skinny as a middle school girl, and was undoubtedly on meth. I later found out he also did heroin and a myriad of other drugs. We end up talking, and I tell him about how I have sinus trouble because of the beating I got from him and his friends. He laughed. I looked around at my younger brother, who had got very skinny from not eating, and sister, the environment they were in, and right then I made a decision. I turned to my mother and said, I don't give a crap if this is the kind of people you want to be around, indicating the piece of crap next to me, but we are leaving. So I piled my siblings in my car and brought them home with me. They shortly moved in with my father officially and have been much better off since. Patrick made a comment about me, quote, disrespecting him and my mother, and I told him he had no respect for himself, obviously, so who is he to talk like that? He went to hit me and I just stared at him. He dropped his fist quick after I stared him down for what felt like an hour. TLDR, met middle school bully, he's a meth head, was living with my mother, took my siblings and left after verbally sparring with him. Feels good, man. Edit. Wow, this got a lot more karma than I thought. Didn't have time to write this up earlier, but to clear a few things up, he didn't bang my mother. I don't think. He was basically just there all the time like drug addicts are wont to do. My mother was living, and screwing, her boyfriend at the time, whose house it actually was. And the thought of snapping him like a twig did occur to me, but that paled in comparison to what he was doing to himself. If he didn't clean his ways up by now, he's likely dead or in prison. Beating the crap out of him wouldn't have made me feel any better. Plus, it's a lot easier on the knuckles. When I was a kid, I was fat. I used to get picked on all the time by this kid at church named Rusty. He was about 5 years older than me, and every couple of weeks, he would beat me up. I moved away when I was about 14, and thankfully, I didn't have to deal with him anymore. When I went to college, I decided to get my act together and get healthy. To that end, I started taking mixed martial arts. I did it for about 2 years and lost about 40 pounds. When I graduated, I moved back to where I was from and started looking for a new MMA gym. I went to the most reputable one, and who should be there but Rusty? It sounds too good to be true, but I swear to God it happened. He hadn't changed a bit. The first thing he said to me was, "Finally trying to learn to defend yourself, huh?" I had called ahead, and the instructor knew my deal and had arranged for me to come watch. I left my gear in the car. At the end of class, they do free rolling, jiu-jitsu sparring. Rusty comes up to me, having no knowledge that I am the least bit experienced, and starts begging the instructor to let him spar me, so he can, quote, show me the ropes. After all, he's been in MMA for 3 months now, and he never misses a UFC pay-per-view. I went outside and changed. Long story short, we sparred and I choked him out 3 times. Afterwards, I signed up for classes, he grabbed his bag, left, and never came back. This is my favorite story out of everything that has happened in my life thus far. I'm the only person I know that got to beat up my childhood bully as an adult. I was in need for an accountant job, so I searched several websites of businesses. I came across a very worthy company, so I wanted to apply. While I was filling out the form, I looked around the website some more and saw the name of the head chief of the company. I was depressed for the rest of the day. My high school bully who bullied me every day is now the head chief of his own freaking business. I'm an accountant. It doesn't always work out. This one is a classic. This girl used to torment me all through high school and middle school, really went out of her way to tear me down. Whenever we had a class together, she would make her extreme dislike for me apparent, and, of course, other kids followed. I couldn't open my mouth without some kind of ridicule. Of course I was miserable, and my dad would try to cheer me up. Don't worry, kiddo. One day, she'll be working at a McDonald's and serving you fries. He actually referred to her as McDonald's for years. A couple years after graduating high school, I went to a Hardee's with my dad, and there was McDonald's behind the counter. I go up to place my order, and before I finish, she says, "You don't remember me, do you?" "Oh, I remember you." "Oh, so, would you like fries with that?" "Why, yes. Yes, I would." Way to go, Dad. Called it 9 years in advance. I had an evil 5th grade teacher who made my life terrible for a year. She even instigated a quote, "pick on Stoops day." I saw her at the bar where my friend worked. The day before this, we had invented a shot that tastes like urinal cake smell, Captain Morgan's Lime Bite mixed with Miller High Life. I bought my old teacher and her friends around from across the bar. I made eye contact and raised my shot of Wild Turkey. They gave me a curious look, but took the urinal cake shots nonetheless. My old teacher proceeded to throw up on the bar and get 86th from one of the only bars in town. Screw you, Mrs. Freeman! My sister has since become really good friends with her childhood tormentors. The sad part to me is that the reason she was able to patch things up was that she was a very late bloomer and ended up the kind of popular person they wanted to be friends with. I guess she kind of sold out and became friends with them? How on earth the topic never comes up amongst them, I do not know. Maybe it's her long-term plan to enact revenge, gain trust, destroy them, preferably by dumping pig's blood on their heads at a formal event of some kind. My dad is a very large man. We're talking 6'7", 300 pounds big. He would always tell me this story to cheer me up when girls would be jerks to me. He was pretty chubby in high school, so he played football and was good at it, but just really loved playing basketball. So his freshman year, he tried out for the team and didn't make it. The coach, who was a history teacher at the school, stated his weight as an issue. Fair enough. He worked hard to lose some weight over the summer, blah blah blah. Enter sophomore year. Ends up having the coach as his history teacher. Great, he thinks. He could be a good student and hopefully get on the team. Wrong. This adult man decided to call my father names related to his weight and harass him in front of the class. Not cool, but my dad was too proud and never said anything. Ended up making varsity his sophomore year because of a coaching change. Fast forward about 5 years. My dad was working as a bouncer at a bar in a nearby town to where he went to school. It was a regular night when who walks in? Jerk history teacher. Perfect. He thinks, I'll let it go, be professional, until he recognizes my dad as, quote, the chubby kid who was a coward. My dad looks at him and says, "Sir, I think you've had too much to drink. It's time for you to go home." The coach is saying, No, I'm fine, etc., etc. My dad grabs him by the shirt and says, "No, it's time for you to step outside. You've had too much to drink." The coach decides to swing at my dad, and that's when he loses it. He states, "This is for all the kids you called fat, you piece of crap," and proceeds to beat the tar out of him. A long story, I know, but my favorite by far. My dad and his old bouncer friends always tell it when they got together too. Revenge. Content warning, this one's pretty violent. My dad did something similar. He grew up as a poorish farm boy in Ireland. All he ever wanted to do was sing in the church Christmas Day show. He bought himself a guitar and taught himself to play, but his headmaster at school wouldn't let him, or any of the family for that matter, perform in it. Fast forward about 30 years, we are back in Ireland for my grandfather's funeral, and we walk into my cousin's pub, and sitting at the bar is this old man. I had never seen my dad so angry before in my life. His face was purple with anger at the sight of this guy. He decked this old man so hard he knocked him off his bar stool and onto his back. My dad crouched down inches from his face and said, "Get out before I punch you for every boy you laid eyes on." This old man looked like he was going to crap himself and ran out of there as fast as he could. I was mortified and felt awful for this old man until my dad told me what this man was doing. He was touching the boys from school. He would take his picks and basically cycle through them as he saw fit. The boys not being touched didn't get away easy either. They were hit with a shillelagh until they bled. My dad hated this man and says that had he found him when he was a drinking man, he may have killed him. TLDR, my dad decked an old man for kitty-diddling his friends. This is kind of morbid. In the 6th grade, I was friends with this kid. I remember one day telling him about an episode of Rescue 911 that I saw, where a guy was driving an ATV in a field and didn't see that there was a barbed wire. Fast forward a year, and this kid started to make really mean comments about me. He would make fun of my appearance and how my family had no money in front of everyone. I am from an immigrant family, and he would always tell me to go back to my country. Middle school was really tough on me because of kids like him, but held back from fighting him because I knew nothing good would come from it. Fast forward to the summer after high school graduation, that kid was driving an ATV in a field, didn't see the barbed wire, and was decapitated. Weird that 7 years prior, I had described to my future tormentor exactly how he will die. I've got 2. I was picked on a lot. About 10 years ago, I got a temporary job at Kroger. It was just stocking shelves, and I had another restaurant job lined up, but needed something for about 2 months while I went through a lengthy hiring process there. Spoiler, I wound up getting an even better job elsewhere and wound up never taking that. So, I go to get my check on my first payday at Kroger and find out the manager at the front is one of the guys who used to bully the crap out of me in high school. He made small talk for a minute. "Hey, how you been? Good to see you." He clearly remembered. Once everyone walked away, he leaned in and said, "Hey, deprecated zero, I'm really sorry for all the crap I did to you in school. I was a stupid jerk kid." I smiled, held out my hand, thanked him, and told him it's all in the past. That was really cool. The other is less cool but hilarious to me. This girl was, quote, the prom queen, basically. The stereotypical mean girl dating the football player. My opinion of her was always that she was just spoiled, worthless, and dumb. I don't usually take joy in other people's misfortune, but I felt schadenfreude in unparalleled amounts the day I walked into Buffalo Wild Wings and saw her standing behind the counter. This is maybe 10 years out of high school. She looks exactly the same. Put on some weight maybe, but hair still done the same. She still looks like she got Effie Trinket to do her makeup, so on. You could tell at a glance that she's never mentally moved past 8th grade. I asked how she'd been, tried to politely talk to her because, hey, I want people to do well. She was a jerk. Was like, "Ew, you're deprecated zero." I just raised my eyebrows at her and let it go. Long story short, her boss was my roommate. I asked him about her. Single mother, just got kicked out of her mom's house. He just hired her like 2 weeks earlier. He confronted her about talking down to customers and wound up firing her. Felt like justice. I lucked out and didn't really garner any enemies while in middle school and high school. Mostly because I was the poor kid at a snobby private school in Nashville, Tennessee, until I moved in 9th grade and nobody would talk to me. There was this one really obnoxious boy in one of my classes in 7th grade though, treated everyone like handmaids, but the parents had money, so nothing was ever really done about it. Ran across his Facebook page the other day. His parents just bought him his second Lamborghini because he wrecked the first one. I try not to hold animosity towards anyone, but I hope somebody keys his car. I was working in a video rental store in Houston, circa 1989, about 2 years after I graduated high school. In comes a girl that had always been awful to me from 10th grade to graduation. She would cross a room just to say something mean, and I had no history with this girl at all. I had never actually said a word to her. All our exchanges were just her saying something mean to me. I didn't even know her last name. I must have reminded her of someone. She comes into the store and sheepishly said that she wanted 3 dirty movies. She didn't seem to remember me. She said her best friend was getting married and she wanted some dirty movies for the bachelorette party. The shop had a small adult room that you had to access by coming behind the counter, but she didn't want to go in there. She asked me to select 3 films. She was squirming with embarrassment as I tried to find out what she was, quote, into, and kind of acted like I thought the films were for her and her alone. She said, "Just grab 3 good ones, I don't care." So I selected 3, all lesbian adult films, and she slunk out with them. I would have loved to see the look on their faces when they popped those tapes in. She returned them through the night drop so she wouldn't have to look anyone in the eye when she brought them back. She rented on her parents' account. I sent a notice through the mail to her parents that, quote, Mona's three-way slit party had been returned damaged and they owed us $30. Met a kid that was an absolute brute in high school. Thought he was tough stuff. I think I only went face-to-face with him once over some dumb crap about him threatening a friend of mine. No real fight ever came from it, but he was definitely an enemy. Met him randomly in an airport halfway across the country maybe 4 years after high school. He was the nicest guy. The Marines beat the stupid right out of him. I was playing poker in Atlantic City about 7 years ago, and one of the guys that bullied me, Chad, sat at my table. There's no way he recognized me. I was actually playing on a no-limit hold'em table while waiting for a seat to open in a two-way high-low game. Anyway, I stayed at the NLHE table just to take his money. I played probably 95% of the pots he was in. He was pretty drunk and wasn't very good. I got close to $600 off of him in a little over an hour before he decided to quit. I have no idea what he does for a living, but I am 100% sure he is a big loser when he plays cards.
What was your most awesome "don't F with me" moment? I will gladly start. One day, I was out fishing at a local pond with a few girls that I went to school with. We'd gotten close because of Honours Society, and yes, they're attractive. We catch a few bass and channel catfish and decide it's time to head home before dusk sets tonight. Mind you, there's about a 150 to 200 yard path from the parking lot to the actual pond, so we started heading down said path. As we get about halfway down, we see two local thugs who have dropped out of high school and are always around to cause trouble in our town. Since I'm carrying all of the tackle for non-fishermen, rods, lures, tackle box, etc., I'm also trailing the three girls. As we got closer to the thugs, I hear one of them yelling bullcrap like, "Damn, mummy, look at that butt!" and "Crap, I'd screw every single one of you," right in front of the girls. Next, the guy in front turns around and grabs one of my friend's butts and slaps her right in the chest. This teed me off more than anything, and I stupidly yell, "Hey, frick butts, don't even frickin' look at them." I admit I'm a little hot-tempered and probably could have handled the situation much better, but frick it, I was in the heat of the moment. The two guys start walking over to me, obviously ready to beat my butt. With quick thinking, I dropped my tackle and flipped out my 4-inch Smith & Wesson knife from my pocket, and to put the icing on the cake, I pull out my car bar that I use for filleting. After this, the story kind of winds down. The dudes were silent after that, took a very wide path around us, and we were on our way. Needless to say, that was my great "don't frick with me" moment. To clarify to those asking, I did not get laid. However, I did get a free dinner out of it. Well, that could have gone one of two ways, and I for one am very happy that those guys just chose to walk away. But nonetheless, well done, Knifey McFisherman. My friend's dad is a truck driver, and he used to pick up hitchhikers all the time. One time he picked two of them up, and they started on the journey to wherever they were going. After an hour, one decides he's going to try and jack the truck, and pulls out a knife. Well, my friend's dad, being super cool and steely, floors it and says, "You're gonna put that knife away, or I'm gonna kill us all," and steers directly toward the concrete dividers that were splitting the highway up ahead. The would-be truck jackers put away the knife and sit quietly for the rest of the ride, and he still drops them off at their destination. That's a bad motherfricker right there. I think you mean a bad butt mother trucker. He must have had a mustache to store his extra testicle in. I was living with a middle-aged woman. Since I'm middle-aged as well, this was a fairly decent arrangement. Her daughter was living with us as well, 17 years old and hell on wheels. From what I understand, one of her former boyfriends became upset with her because she had a new boyfriend. He was going to come to my home and beat the crap out of her under my roof. He said that if I got in his way, he was going to beat my butt as well. A friend of hers caught wind of what was happening and called her mother. She called me. The boy showed up with an audience. I greeted them just by poking my head out of the door and telling them to get the frick off my property. The butthole gets out of the vehicle. I open the door, and he can see that I'm packing a .45 in my shoulder rig. I also have an .870 by the door. I hear a forlorn, "Hi, John," to me, from his friend that came along to witness him beating my butt. I repeat my demand that the man remove himself from my property, and he complied. It could have been the gun, then again it could have been the shovel leaning against my truck, and the fact that no one would come looking for him if he disappeared that far from town. My great-grandfather was a CB in World War II. Somewhere along the way, he got his hands on a frag grenade. When he came home, he unscrewed the pin fuse mechanism, dumped out the black powder that makes the boom boom, and put the fuse back on so it looked like a regular grenade. He kept it on his bedstand for the rest of his life. Apparently, this was also when someone broke into his house, he could calmly walk out with the grenade, pull the pin, and threaten to blow everyone to heck and back if they didn't kindly replace anything they'd taken and exit his property. I work as an EMT, and one time we had a bloodbath of a call. Old lady had damn near scalped herself in a fall, and it was quite messy. Trying to keep her calm to keep the bandages on her freely flowing head. After the call, I was covered from the front down, in my uniform, and took off the top layer to reveal my undershirt, which was also covered in blood. Too late in the day, and not caring, I was hopping in the back of the rig and heading back to base to change. My apartment was a mile from the base, so I headed there instead. As we pull up, I hear voices yelling and hop out in my now blood-drenched clothes. I turn around the corner and see 3 guys grabbing and pulling one of my neighbors, an elderly woman who doesn't speak much English. So I quickly take stock of the situation and grab a tire iron from the side of the rig, which was slightly out of view. I take a few steps and yell, "Leave her alone or you're going to pay," while my partner calls for PD backup. They turn around just as some of the outside lights come on and reveal me, a 5'10" skinny guy, covered in blood with tactical pants on, with a tire iron. Their faces were priceless. Suddenly one of them books, and the other says to the last guy there, "Frick it, I'm not dealing with that dude," and follows his friend. I help the lady and then realize what a scary sight I was. Some dude, covered in blood with a tire iron, coming out from around the corner into the light and angry. She ended up being fine, and I changed rather quickly after that. The police came and got what little info they could, and we were all on our way. But gosh darn, I felt like a superhero. In conclusion, covered in blood, I scared off 3 thugs who wanted to beat an old Russian lady with a tire iron and good lighting. Now, this I can get behind. Theatricality and costume over violence any day. Batman would be proud of you, sir. Long story short, my passport got stolen and my only way back home was a train from Oakland, California, back to Canada. So I was sitting at the train station for like 2 hours and decided to go for a walk around that part of Oakland, across from where the Raiders and A's play. Being naive and from Canada, I had no idea what this meant. It took me less than 10 minutes to realize that I'd made a horrible decision. A car started driving around the block I was walking down. I had a suitcase and a backpack and a large bag. It was a long trip. After the 3rd time being circled around, I decided to walk back, and quickly. That worked well until I had to cross the parking lot, where this car pulled in as well. Now, being from Canada, all of a sudden the thought of these scary stories of gang shootings and muggings from the American news got me scared. I try not to profile people, but the 3 guys who got out of the car are what we see as the typical gangsters. Pants to ankles, gold chains, gold teeth, driving an old Cadillac. The driver steps in front of my walking path because I've been trying to avoid eye contact. He stops me and goes, "Yo man, you not from here," and laughs. "What you got in there? Hey, I should check it out." His 2 friends are leaning over the car, and one pulls a bat out of the car and places it on the roof. This is where my instincts kick in, and I lose control of any real thinking. So I start yelling in the most aggressive way possible. "I got my fricking crap, that's what I got. I'm from Surrey fricking BC, and if you think pulling out a bat means you fricking scare me, you think twice. You better have something more than that to get at me. I step over smackheads on my way to work every morning, and I stabbed a guy for pushing me in a bus line. So if you want to start something, fricking start it." Now, obviously, I've never stabbed anyone, and I'm from Surrey, and I do step over smackheads on my way to work, but I don't know where any of this came from. By all physical appearances, I'm a bit of a dork, and I'm gay, so I have no idea where any of this came from, but my heart was racing, and this is what came out. So I stood there for a few seconds, breathing heavily, fists clenched, posed in the same stupid-looking come-at-me-bro pose, like I was ready to battle a lion. The guy looks at his other friends and then goes, "My bad, man," and then gets back in the car and they leave. About a minute after they left, I actually had to sit down because my legs would not work. I was so scared. So that's how I almost died. I don't actually think this would or could ever happen again in the same situation. I have almost never raised my voice in my life. But I really didn't want to die. Also, after the gong show of losing your passport in a foreign country and having to take a train home, your emotions get the best of you. I've had a similar moment. At the time, I was 23 and super goth. We're talking 8-inch platform boots, on top of being 6'1", skin-tight rubber pants, makeup, shaved off and drawn on eyebrows, girl's tank top, the works. So I was very androgynous. On my way home, in the ghetto, on a bus full of inner-city high school kids just out of school, and this tough guy thug is giving me the hairy eyeball the whole ride. I get off at my stop and the kid follows me. He couldn't have been more than 16, but he thinks he's hard. He starts harnessing me, threatening to beat my queer butt if I don't give him my wallet. I turn calmly around to face him and I say, "Look, kid, I'm 23 and I've been dressing like this since I was 15. You think this would be my first fight? Why don't you walk the frick away before you have to explain to your friends how you got yourself beat by a queer?" I then turned my back on him and walked back home while he stood there in silence. It's kind of a cliche line, but damn if it doesn't work. Two guys at a bar, one sitting next to me and the other across, start fricking with me for no apparent reason. They were clearly on the sauce. The fact that I ordered the crappy bar pizza is a testament to the fact that I was nearing that point too. At the point the waitress came by and dropped my pizza off, the guy across from me is basically challenging me to walk outside. At that moment, the sad excuse of a D-bag next to me makes a grab at my pizza. Through some amazing drunken luck, I see this out of the corner of my eye, launch my arm out, and backslap the crap out of this guy's arm. They must have thought I knew martial arts because they didn't say a word after this and got up to leave. Don't mess with my pizza. How do we have these moments of supreme physical coordination when we've had a fair bit to drink? I once landed a chip in my friend's wine glass from across a big room after a medically inadvisable amount of liquor, and I could never do that sober. Same probably goes for Karate McBar Pizza. Mine was more of a don't F with me because my brother is bat crap crazy moment. I have an older gay brother. It was pretty well known that he was gay in high school, but nobody ever flat out asked me about it. One day, two guys from the football team, both juniors, are giving me a hard time. Suddenly, brother walks over and says, "Hey, leave him alone. This isn't a request." One guy replies, "Shut up, queer. What are you gonna do?" My brother's answer still sticks with me to this day. See, you should think about that. I've been a queer about as long as I can remember, which means I got into fights every day. So I know I can fight. How about you? Can you actually fight? Or do you just try to scare people? Because you don't scare me. I've F'd guys bigger than both of you. Again, leave my brother alone. F you, queer. You're not my type. I like men. At this point, a little crowd had gathered and they began to laugh at my brother's last comment. The two guys scowled, huffed, and walked away. My brother looked at me, smiled, and said, "Sorry if that was awkward." I used to get in fights a lot, but I think the best one was at a bar with my buddy watching baseball games. My buddy loves the Red Sox and doesn't drink, and I think baseball is stupid, but I love drinking, so we reached a kind of compromise. Anyway, while my friend Scott is chatting up this girl next to him about the Sox or whatever, these two guys next to us in Yankees jerseys are becoming more and more belligerent, yelling, throwing crap at the TV, and just generally being buttheads. Now, I know enough about baseball to know Boston and New York hate each other. Hell, I'm originally from Philadelphia, we hate everyone. But I didn't think these two were going to be much trouble aside from being loud. Then, for whatever reason, one of the big New Yorkers guys decides to dump a full beer on this Red Sox chick my friend was talking to. At this point, my entirely sober friend said something along the lines of, "Hey dude, what the frick?" This dude turned to my buddy, reeled drunkenly for a moment, and then leaned way back and made that huge hocking a loogie sound, and right as he leaned in to spit, I swung at him, forgetting I still had a full beer mug in my hand. According to my friend and his lady friend, the spit totally came all the way out of his mouth, hit the mug, and then went back into his face when the mug hit him. It was wicked awesome. Now mind you, I'm completely hammered, but as far as New York bros were concerned, I came out of freaking nowhere like an inebriated Batman, because at the time I was sitting at a table behind the whole group. Wingmanning is a subtle art, so this guy hits the floor bloody and sputtering. His other New York bro looks at me, mouth agape, and takes 2 steps back. And then I got jumped by the bouncers and was dragged out of the bar yelling, "Frick New York!" the entire way because I was too drunk to think of a good badass line. Not quite as bad as most of these stories, but I've got kind of a good one. Just to provide a bit of context, I'm a super skinny, wimpy, white male, and a really nice guy who you'd never expect to lash out at someone. Back in high school, there was this kid who liked to mooch off everyone else's lunch, just because he'd never bought or packed his own. You know, the whole, "I'm really poor, so you should definitely give me all your food. I need it more than you" routine. He wasn't really, he just liked to take our food because he could. Every now and again, I'd give him half a sandwich or something, because like I said, I enjoy being a nice person. But one day, I just snapped. He grabbed my whole lunch bag from right in front of me without even asking for anything, and before I even started to eat my own food. In an instant, I dove across the table, grabbed him by his shirt, pulled him completely over to my side, and growled, "Give me my fricking lunch back, butthole," in his face. I got it, and it was delicious. I'd call this a badass moment of mine because I never ever act out like that. I'm usually pretty submissive and soft about things. But gosh darn it, I was excited for my little Debbie's and ham sandwich, and I wasn't going to let some butthole take them from me. All of my friends were totally shocked too. They had no idea I was even capable of sticking up for myself like that. Guess that's one way to keep people from messing with you. Among many of my security jobs, I've worked loss prevention for 2 major retailers. For those wondering, loss prevention is essentially catching shoplifters. Eventually, you just kind of know who to watch and who not to. One day, my partner, a female, and I started to watch this guy. Early 20s, overly muscled and spray-tanned, with a Guido Jersey Shore haircut and a muscle shirt. He is, of course, looking at other muscle shirts in the store. We see him select 5 shirts, go into the fitting room. Long story short, we know that he steals 8 of those shirts eventually, and me and my co-workers are with him acting as an arguing couple the whole time. He eventually goes to leave the store, which is when we can stop him. So we get in front of him at the doors, identify ourselves, and ask him to come with us. Now, I normally slouch a lot, but I'm 6'4". So the kid gets in my face, saying he didn't do anything, and if I don't move, he's going to kick my butt. So all I did was stare at him and say, "Make a decision about what you're going to do, and we'll go from there." Totally calm, with a straight face. He kind of blinked and got a weird look in his eye and asked me, "What?" So I repeated myself. I said, "Make a decision about what you're going to do, and we'll go from there." He kind of sat there for a few seconds and leaned back a bit and started catcalling my female co-worker instead. At that point, I snapped my fingers and told him to pay attention to me. After that, we placed him in handcuffs and led him to the office for processing. Since then, I've used that line multiple times at other LP, security jobs, and even at bars. The only time anyone has ever done anything after that was a patient from a mental hospital I worked at who was schizophrenic, and at that point, it didn't matter what I said. 60% of the time, it works every time. I too have a security job story. It was getting late, the store is about to close, Lord & Taylor, when I see a guy who doesn't look like he'd be buying the types of clothes that are sold there. He walks in and starts browsing the dress shirt section. Me and my fellow co-workers see him pick up about 10 shirts and proceed to walk into the dressing room with them. Now, you think that a smart thief may hide 1, 2, or maybe 3 in their pants if they're super ballsy. No, this man decides to stuff 10 dress shirts down into his pants, making him look like he has similar-sized quads as Ronnie Coleman himself. At this point, I stop him right away, say that we know he's trying to steal all the shirts and ask him kindly to put them back. This is when things start heating up. The man says he has a deadly transmitted disease, pulls out a syringe and says that anyone that tries to get in his way is going to get stuck. I obviously don't want any part of this, so I back up and was going to let him go. Normal protocol is that you're not allowed to touch a customer inside the store, even if you do know they're stealing. This is when I hear clothes dropping on the floor and the sounds of metal hangers rattling. My coworker decided that 10 shirts was not leaving the store, and he was going to stop this man. Out of left field, I see a metal bar come slamming into this man with the force of 100 men. He gets knocked unconscious, cops are called, the man gets arrested, and all was made right in the world. I wasn't really bad, but my coworker surely was. If your coworker did that to stop him from sticking someone with a needle, then he's pretty cool. If he did it to prevent a theft, then he's a fricking moron. I'm inclined to agree with that final commenter. I love a good defeat the bad guy story, but endangering yourself and your retail coworker like that to save some shirts isn't worth it. I was in downtown Houston skating around with some friends when I told them I had to stop and pee. So I walked into a narrow alley and started peeing. I didn't see these 2 girls just smoking cigarettes, staring at my dong. So I looked at them and smiled. Right as I finished up, a couple of D-bags came up and just started talking crap to them. Typical wanna frick you, got a pretty mouth, dumb craps. So I started to walk over and break that crap up when a guy looks at me and says, "What the frick do you think you're gonna do, B-word?" So I just started talking in a low voice in German, just repeating lyrics from Rammstein, making it sound like a threatening sentence instead of a song. Then they freaked out because I'm a tall, fairly muscular motherfricker. They left and the girls said thanks and asked me what I said, and I told them, I don't know, and I left. I was with some guys and we were all drunk. We walked out of a bad greasy spoon at 3 a.m. and ran into some guys walking into the restaurant, also drunk. I was the last in my group and I accidentally rubbed shoulders with the first guy in that group. Immediately, he starts talking crap, but I just ignore him and keep walking to the parking lot. I'm about halfway to my car when he says something that particularly offends me, because it was targeted at one of the girls with us. I turn around and seconds later, we're in the middle of a blank spot in the parking lot with our friends off to the sides. Eye to eye, he finally realizes that I'm a pretty big guy. We have a tense silence for a few seconds, then under my breath I quietly say, "You're gonna say, frick this guy, he ain't worth it. You're gonna turn around, walk away, and rejoin your friends. And you're gonna do that because if you don't, you won't need to eat, because I'm gonna feed you your frickin' shoes." About 5 seconds passed before he said, "Oh, frick this guy, he ain't worth it," and rejoined his friends. Probably more of a D-bag thing than a badass thing, but oh well. I used to work at Starbucks in the city where a lot of trust fund kids like to hang out and act homeless. There was always a group of them who stood out the front of the store, and that was next to Starbucks, yelling at people and usually playing hacky sack with each other. They made it a habit of yelling at anyone who walked through their game, threatening them. Bunch of bullcrap. I was going to my shift one day, and I was in a rotten mood. There they were, playing that game in the middle of the sidewalk, blocking everyone. I walked right through them, interrupted the game, and they started to call me out. I kept walking until I felt the hacky sack hit me in the back. I picked it up and threw it on the roof of the Starbucks and walked into work. I work at a bar as a bouncer. I don't look like the biggest guy, but I do strength training regularly. I deal with buttholes on a nightly basis. One in particular caught my eye when he was literally screaming at his girlfriend inside my bar. I walked up to him and let him know that if he did that again, he would be picking garbage from his teeth. Him being drunk, he didn't listen, and as I'm clearing out the bar at bar close, I see him again across the bar near the front door, near the trash can filled with random bar crap and bottles. He yells at her again, reaches back and slaps her. She goes to the floor. I crushed a par through the patrons and he didn't see me coming. One punch KO'd him and he landed headfirst in the trash can. I then proceeded to put the rest of him in it, picked his girlfriend up off the floor and contacted the police. They laughed upon arriving at him still being in the trash can.
Military personnel of Reddit. What's the best, weirdest, or funniest punishment you've seen handed down by a superior? USMC boot. One kid on Firewatch failed to notice the DI coming on deck, which means you immediately salute and report your post. So the DI ran up to the rifle rack, smacked it, and yelled, "Bam! You're dead." He tried to respond, but was cut off by the DI. "You're a ghost now. You can't talk. Go act like a ghost." Then the kid had to wander around the squad bay for the rest of his 2-hour Firewatch acting like a ghost, and he took that responsibility with stride. Plenty of ridiculous, "Ooh, I'm a ghost" noises and screwing with people's racks. We were all laughing our butts off for the next hour till our senior got mad. Here's another one that happened to me. An SDI from the squad bay above us told us that whenever he comes on deck and we call the greeting, we all have to squat until he tells us to get up. So we do. Now, one day, I'm out doing gear guard with a buddy. Apparently, the SDI came on deck and told everyone to stop squatting. Coming back from gear guard, I didn't know that. He comes on deck, I squat, and no one else is. I look around. I crack a smile, and that was the oh crap moment. Though, instead of just getting smoked, he told me he wanted me to sing. Side straddle hops and mountain climbers, Marine Corps push-ups, double timers. While doing the exercises I was singing. The tune, "The wheels on the bus go round and round." So it goes into the duty hut and I start. At first I was quiet and wasn't into it, but I decided, screw it, let's go for it. So for the next 20 minutes, approximately, I was belching out "Wheels on the bus go round and round" with those lyrics as loud as I could sing it while doing those exercises. The rest of my platoon was cleaning rifles. Everyone freaking lost it after a few minutes, even the DIs. All 3 of them covered their faces and just stood there laughing. It was amazing, and a really, really good workout. I was exhausted. Marine Boot Camp. We had a guy that somehow got his watch through the in-dock. They take all your crap when you first get there. Well, the DIs found out he had it when they saw him wearing it one day, so they put him in the squad bay trash can and put the lid on it. Every time they walked by and kicked it, he'd pop out with his watch and yell, "Sir, the time on deck is 09:45, and then go back into his can like the freaking Grouch from Sesame Street. It was really, really hard not to laugh at that. During my first deployment to Iraq as a 50 cal gunner, I had a salty sergeant for a team leader. Dude had been at the tip of the spear for the Iraq invasion, been to Baghdad in 2005, and now he was back for his 3rd time in 2007. Not only was he intimidating, but he knew how to discipline your butt if you stepped out of line. I was a stupid, young, private first class with about a year in the Army. I knew what was right and what was wrong, and thankfully, was able to get on his good side. Our driver though, nuh-uh. He was a short, stupid specialist with a crustache who recently did 4 years in Korea. This dude was so off, he even re-enlisted for it when his first stint was over. Dude was just freaking weird and gross. Always had an excuse for everything, nothing was ever his fault. He loved trying to pass the blame down my way, mostly because he outranked me. Our sergeant normally knew what was up and corrected him accordingly. Well, during a convoy security mission one day in southern Iraq, he hit a pothole. Like, a big one. Probably 20 foot long by 20 foot wide. Our sergeant flips out, asking what the heck he was doing. The driver tries blaming it on me, saying I never let him know it was there. Since I was the gunner, I had to make everything aware to him because I was the eyes and ears. The sergeant chews him out, saying it was the driver's fault he didn't avoid the pothole since I was up top scanning for threats. We were the lead vehicle, so it's not like this pothole was obscured by anything, especially since it was in broad daylight. The driver then starts saying, "I don't know, Sergeant. I couldn't see it because I'm short." He wasn't that short. Guy was maybe 5'7", give or take an inch. He wasn't paying attention, and that's what the sergeant wanted to hear, because it was the truth. Well, this irritates the heck out of our sergeant, and he calls for the entire convoy, something like 20 semis, 6 Humvees, and 2 M1117 ASVs, to halt. He then tells me to pass down an empty 50 caliber can. I do so with a quickness. The sergeant then passes the can to the driver and makes him use it as a booster seat. The driver protests, then my sergeant gives him a direct order to do so. The driver backs down and does it. At every gate to every base we approached, my sergeant made the driver open the door and show every guard what he was sitting on. Then he was forced to sing, "I'm a little teapot, me, oh my, I sit on a high chair so we don't blow up and die." Most of the guards just laughed their butts off. A few radioed for other guards to come see it. He was the laughingstock of our battalion for months. A recruit in USMC boot camp thought he was special because he was an Eagle Scout. The drill instructor picked up on this, and during PT, took him into the woods and made him build a nest. Then, he had to squat over it in order to keep his eggs warm. When we were heading to Iraq, we had to pass through Kuwait. Kuwait, being the transient hub for soldiers heading to and leaving Iraq, it is very chaotic. As a result of jet lag and the chaotic nature of Kuwait, my buddy had brought his weapon to the shower, but forgot to grab it on his way back to the tent. Shortly after he left, a sergeant came bursting through the door to see him sitting on his cot, messing around with his new video camera he had just purchased to bring on the deployment. His punishment was to get up, take his weapon and camera, and go sit in the community shower area and make sure no one else leaves their weapon in the shower for the night. So, what would you see when you went to take off your clothes to get in the shower was a fully dressed guy with a video camera just sitting there looking at you. There was a time when we made a private sweep all the sunshine off the sidewalks. It took the poor guy all day. One of the first days in basic, a guy in my platoon was standing at attention while having his room inspected by the instructor. It didn't matter how nice his room was because there was a large piece of fuzz/fluff on his shirt that immediately drew the sergeant's attention. Imagine a female French-Canadian sergeant with this accent. "Recruit Bloggins, what is that on your shirt? Is it a fluffy?" "Yes, Sergeant. Why is there a fluffy on your shirt, Bloggins?" "I must have missed it, Sergeant." "Missed it? It is so huge. How did you miss such a big fluffy?" She picks it off of him. "Hold out your hand." He holds out his hand and she places it in his palm. "This is Mr. Fluffy. Find a home for him, like a pill bottle or something. From now on, whenever I want to see Mr. Fluffy, you must bring him to me." And so, for the rest of basic, every time the sergeant found a piece of fuzz, she would yell out, "Mr. Fluffy!" And Bloggins would have to march over to her and present Mr. Fluffy, and she would formally hand him the new piece of fuzz to add to Mr. Fluffy. There was heck to pay if he didn't have Mr. Fluffy with him at all times. Week 1 in Army basic training, we had a soldier ask for an omelet in chow line, which was not allowed because there was absolutely no time to make custom omelets for every single basic training soldier. The cook started making the omelet when a drill sergeant asked what the heck was going on. The basic training soldier replied, "Go around, drill sergeant, I'm waiting on an omelet." Needless to say, this was the wrong thing to say and do week 1 in basic training. Our platoon motto was henceforth, "Go around, drill sergeant, I'm waiting on an omelet." And the basic training soldier was henceforth named Private Omelet. In the Marine Corps, when we really screwed up, we would go, quote, fishing. It is where you squat down like you're sitting in a chair and hold a shovel out in front of you in the air like a fishing pole. Then, you just sit there for a long time, and if the shovel would start to droop down, my sergeant would grab the tip of the shovel and start to shake it and make me pretend I was reeling in the big one. One time, me and a buddy got in trouble together, so they made him fish and me flop around on the deck like a fish he had already caught for almost an hour. Now jump on the deck and flop like a fish! SpongeBob SquarePants! We were deployed in Iraq, and a guy was peeing in water bottles instead of walking to the bathroom at night. This is a common thing, but this guy wasn't getting rid of the bottles. He'd keep them underneath his cot for some reason. When the first sergeant found this out, he made the guy report to the commander while holding all of his pee bottles in a box in front of him. They tore into this guy while he was holding a box of his own urine. Guy in basic dropped the biggest turd you've ever seen in the commode. So he shows the drill sergeants, who then make him suit up in full combat gear, weapon and all, and guard it all night. The whole, "Halt! Who goes there?" Pretty amusing. Navy basic training. All of us are doing push-ups. When the instructor says down, everyone counts. When the instructor says up, one guy in particular, the screw-up, is told to shout, "Would you like fries with that?" The instructor told him to get used to it because that's what he's going to be saying for the rest of his life. Down. 1. Up. Would you like fries with that? Down. 2. Up. Would you like fries with that? There was a pool of tears from laughter on the floor below me. I wrote a bad check while stationed in Korea. $2.06 over the limit. My punishment? To cut the parade field grass with scissors by morning. Had to cut the PT field with scissors along with 3 other guys because while we were buffing the floors, one of them somehow managed to get a candy bar and it fell out of his pocket in front of a drill. Everyone just froze and stared at the Snickers. It's like seeing a bus come at you in slow motion. You can't move, you can't speak, you just watch. Edit. Candy is strictly forbidden, along with sodas, snack foods, laptops, phones, etc. Your only belongings are what you are issued minus stationery and depending on the drills you have, photos. For 3 or 4 months, you only eat what they feed you and you only do what they tell you. The food though? Good lord, the food. Breakfast was freaking awesome, and dinner was usually extremely filling. You didn't go hungry at all. Since you signed on that dotted line, you signed away all privileges for 3 months. I was in a gender-mixed company in basic. The 3rd floor of the barracks was split with females on one half and males on the other. Males were not allowed in the female half and vice versa. My platoon was out back practicing throwing grenade bodies, and a window on the female side of the 3rd floor opened, and a male sneaked out of the window onto the ledge. It was immediately obvious to everyone, including our drill sergeant, that he had been in there messing around with the female, and a drill sergeant must have come down the hall, forcing him to get out onto the ledge so he wouldn't get caught. Our drill sergeant looked at the guy for a minute and then yelled, really sarcastically, "Don't do it, Private, you have lots to live for." Then they put him on self-unalive watch and made him hand over his belts and tie and shoelaces and everything that he could hang himself with and made him drag his newly bare mattress out into the hallway next to the fire guard desk and sleep out there every night until we graduated 4 weeks later. And they made his battle buddy sleep on the floor next to him for the first week. TLDR, male caught messing around with female, treated like potential self-unalive for remaining month of BCT. Officers can't punish soldiers with any punishment that doesn't follow guidelines. That said, they could be ordered some stupid things. My friend got ordered to move a box weighing about 50 pounds from the barracks to the shower every 2 minutes for 2 hours. The officer's reason for it was because he didn't know where to put it and was trying to decide if it should be at the barracks or the shower. In the end, he ended up telling him to load it up in the truck. Having to apply suntan lotion to a crap ton of large rocks so they, quote, don't get sunburned, then having to flip every rock and reapply as needed. I once spent 12 hours cleaning screens on windows. That doesn't sound bad, does it? Try this. Find a small wire about the same gauge as the holes in your window screen. Gently push the wire through the hole in the screen to make sure that the hole is empty. Repeat for 3 minutes, then look away from the screen. Anything weird with your eyes? Try it for hours. Had a guy in a warehouse drop a pallet load of assorted nuts and bolts off a forklift. Boxes broke open, 100,000 little nuts and bolts everywhere of various sizes. He had to sweep them into a pile, repair the boxes, fit each nut to a screw to make sure of the size, The pile was then inspected, then he had to remove each nut from the screw and place the screw in the proper box, then place the nut in the proper box. Probably 25 or 50 per box, I don't remember. Doesn't sound too bad, right? Took 3 12-hour days. He wasn't allowed to sit down. He had to bend over at the waist, pick up a tiny nut and screw, straighten up, screw them together, then bend over for another. More than 100,000 times. Think about it. During an inspection and basic training, a piece of lint was found in our dryer. I ordered to, quote, handcuff the intruder and construct a detention facility where the intruder could be interrogated. I was to have an in-depth report on who he was, where he was from, and what he was doing in the building. My grandfather, who was a Korea veteran, had a story about a guy who kept getting things taken away from him as punishment. Apparently, before it was over, he had no socks or shoelaces, no underwear, and they took the inside part of his helmet. My brother told me that when he was in basic, a drill sergeant yelled at this guy to, quote, beat his face, meaning to do push-ups. Said guy had no clue it meant that, and promptly punched himself in the face really, really hard and fell to the ground. The drill sergeant had to walk that one off, and my brother said you could hear him laughing hysterically as he walked behind a building. Not totally relevant, but I figured I'd share. Drill was smoking us one morning, and one of the other boots kept making karate sounds on the up on the push-ups. Drill was down with us, so he'd shout, down, hold it, to the left, and up, and you'd hear, hi-ya, in a long, low, guttural grunt. Eventually, everyone is laughing, including the drill, at the up sounds. Finally, he collapses in a fit of giggles and shouts, I hate all you suckers. Then he walks over to the other drill, who is snickering, and says, I quit. I can't smoke these suckers if they make me laugh. Didn't see him until after chow. Another from basic was, a private was caught walking to the showers without wearing his clothes, just holding his towel and walking nude. The showers were in the same bay, and it was just males in the bay, but a female drill from another platoon came in and saw him and made him drop and give 50 push-ups while nude. A buddy of mine had a DI that would make anyone who did anything stupid chug a smart water, quote, in case it helps. A guy I worked with had a habit of falling asleep at his desk. He was a real scumbag. Unfortunately, he was also a 1-star general's son. They made him sit at his desk with one of those exercise yoga ball things. The sucker still fell asleep, but he would hit his head on the desk or fall over. He also decided to tell his supervisor he had an appointment, but instead took a nap in his room. They called the cops on him and had him arrested for dereliction of duty. Fun stuff. Got caught in basic with my iPod, and I ran around the camp for near 2 hours with my iPod over my head, shouting, I'm a stupid jerk for bringing my iPod in the field, as the, quote, enemy was attacking our camp. I then proceeded to put my iPod in a plastic bag, then taped it onto my helmet, and from there on, I responded to private iPod. When my instructor shouted play, I had to sing, skip, I had to switch songs, etc. It lasted 2 weeks, even during the night when I had 1 to 2 hours to sleep. Throwaway to protect the innocent. I was once in the Navy, stationed at Kings Bay, a Navy submarine and training base in rural southern Georgia, USA. A stone's throw away from Florida. Due to this base may or may not contain nuclear weapons, there is a Marine Security Detachment / Battalion / something stationed there as well. The majority of these poor sods were just out of Marine kill camp and were hot and heavy to go off to Middle Eastistan and, quote, shoot them some towel heads. Unfortunately, they'd landed themselves in a swamp in rural southern Georgia. Needless to say, they typically made very poor choices. Their superiors, however, normally disciplined them well. Amongst the punishments I witnessed were the following. Number 1. A group of Marines had decided to play soccer with an armadillo, killing it. They were forced to perform a full military funeral for the poor creature, then stand honor guard at its grave for a week, 24/7, in full dress uniform, in the middle of the summer. Remember, this is in a swamp in southern Georgia. Number 2. I happened to be out early one Sunday morning, chain-smoking and drinking coffee outside of the Navy barracks, when an interesting sight came by. There were 13 Marines, 12 of them were running and carrying a telephone pole on their shoulders, 6 in front, 6 in back. The 13th man was in the middle of the pole, hanging from it, doing pull-ups, as the telephone pole was being carried by the other 12 running Marines. After a certain number of pull-ups, he would swap with one of the carriers. Number 3. Speaking of, this base may or may not contain nuclear weapons. The Marines had to do regular patrols, driving slowly around in Humvees or armored cars around the storage bunkers and the base at large. Apparently, there was a problem with the Marines in the vehicles falling asleep and running off the road. A brilliant NCO had the following great idea. Only one Marine would be in the vehicle, whilst the other Marine would be running behind it. If the vehicle were to start swaying off the road, the runner would awaken his driver comrade and they'd swap. It didn't take long, however, for this plan to fail. Patrol vehicle went off the road, crashed, and the Marine running stayed the course, smacking into the back of the vehicle and rendering himself unconscious. Some idiot gun bunny didn't check pressures before they took their piece out onto the field. Instead of being smart and zipping his lip, he said something stupid to the master gunny about the cooler temperatures causing the pressure to drop. For 13 hours the next day, he had to deflate every tire on every artillery piece, refill them to spec with a hand pump, and if anyone asked him what the heck he was doing, he had to yell, "I am replacing the summer air in the tires with fresh winter air!"
What's the most real relationship advice you can give? It's fine to not always want to spend 100% of your time with your spouse. Not every moment of every day is going to be bliss, and sometimes it really takes some effort. I love my wife to bits, but there are some days when I would just like to do things by myself. It doesn't mean our relationship isn't great, but it can be really refreshing just to take a stroll around a shopping center, or go get some food alone or something. This 100%. My spouse goes to a weekly Pathfinder game. That's his alone time. I occasionally go to a punk show or have a beer with my friends. It can be even simpler. I will go read a book in the other room and get my alone time. He likes to cook, so he'll start up in the kitchen and I stay away while he listens to his music. Everyone needs alone time. Don't lose yourself as an individual in a relationship. Happened to me. Where were you 10 years ago? Ah, but would you have listened 10 years ago? I think it's so important to have your own social lives and circles, but I see so many couples who bring their partner to everything, to the point that they're basically a part of every social group that person is in. Where does that person then have an escape to? When can they go out with their friends without the other one feeling bad for not being invited? Keep your own circle. My partner and I have been friends for years, even before we were a couple, so we have the same friend group. I combat this by asking when he wants me to tag along to outings like shopping, and also we have pretty chill home life. Also, we're not attached at the hip at events, and I know when to step back and let him have one-on-one conversations. I try and let him know that it's okay for us to do our own thing and I won't be offended. Sometimes I worry that I'm too much and we're not getting enough alone time, but we communicate well and respect each other. So if it ever becomes an issue, it wouldn't be one for too long. Communication is key. Make sure you're talking to your partner and finding out what they need and telling them your needs too. Intimacy is way more important than people realize. Like I've told my wife, yeah, sure, there's lust involved, but there's also interest in making your partner feel good as well. If that interest isn't there, your partner might as well be an adult fun time toy for all they mean to you. This is where I think a lot of people miss the point. Everyone seems to automatically infer that it's physical intimacy that's important. Intimacy is emotional. It's meaningful and vulnerable sharing of one's inner self. It's not what you do in bed. That's not hard. Real intimacy is hard, and it's super fulfilling to be intimate with your partner. So important, and physical intimacy begets emotional intimacy. Physical intimacy is our biggest way of being there for each other. Everyone needs a hug. Everyone needs cuddles. Words can't always do what a good, genuinely loving hug can do. Go on holiday together. If you can agree on food, sleep soundly, compromise on activities, and do your own thing one of the days, and not get mad at each other, you stand a good chance of lasting a while. I love my boyfriend to bits and miss him a lot. We don't live together yet, but boy do I like sleeping in my own bed sometimes. Space is healthy. Just because you're in a relationship, it doesn't mean you have to live in each other's pockets. Given the sheer amount of friends that I've discovered I can't stand traveling with, finding someone to meet this comment's criteria seems impossible. Oh dear. When you disagree, remember that you're on the same team. You're supposed to fight a problem, not the other person. This is such an awesome way of putting that concept. 1. Don't expect the other person to be able to read your mind. 2. Be a team, not opponents. 3. Everybody toots at some point. Number 3 has been a hard thing for me during my current relationship. My significant other has a colostomy bag after battling colon cancer, which has been a huge learning experience in itself. I'm all for being comfortable with the body and all of its weird, icky processes, and I'm usually quick to make that known. But knowing that he physically can't toot makes me way more reluctant to do it around him. Like, I don't want to be a show-off, you know? My husband blames his toots on the baby sometimes, and for some reason I think it's hilarious to imagine a 7-month-old making that kind of gas. I know I found the right person. It wasn't easy though, damn. Communication is the foundation upon which everything else is built. They say don't go to bed angry, not because anger does something while you're sleeping, but because it means you didn't communicate properly and you're giving up on trying. Be calm, actively listen, do not dismiss your partner's statements, assume good faith. It's you and me versus the problem, not me versus you. If something's bugging you, talk to your significant other about it. If you feel enraged about something, wait until you're well-fed, well-rested, with warm extremities before talking about it. But talk about it at the first opportunity. Calmly, rationally, and honestly. Keep the discussion limited to that one narrow thing. If something's bugging your significant other, hear them out. Never think, well, I'm not bothered by that, so it's not a problem. Think, my significant other is bothered by this, and that's a problem. If you think the concern is unreasonable, frame the discussion as solving the problem of your significant other is being unhappy. The worst fights and arguments happen over trivial things because it's not the trivial thing that's actually causing the problem. It's probably a series of things or a general lack of satisfaction, and the toothpaste cap being left off is just the instigator of the fight. If you communicate often and openly, these things will not fester, they won't pile up, and you won't get into such fights. Your spouse isn't going to be perfect. You're not going to be perfect. There will be mistakes and misunderstandings. What really matters in a relationship is not being perfect, but how you handle the imperfections of yourself and your spouse in a respectful, reasonable way. Learning how to be bored together is important. You don't have to be on the go, doing stuff and planning stuff and being fun and exciting all the time. It's okay to just sit around and not do anything and not talk to each other. It's not unhealthy, I promise. This was one of the biggest things I learned when I moved in with my significant other, and what I give as advice to couples just moving in. Especially when it's their first time living with a significant other, you have to learn how to be in the same room without actively hanging out together. When your whole relationship has been dates, it's hard to just be, without feeling like you should be interacting. Getting comfortable just chilling there, doing your own thing, is a good thing. There's so much pressure to do stuff, especially in the age of social media. Other couples do stuff all the time, and everyone is looking for adventures. We must keep up with the carefully manufactured images of other people put out on Instagram. In reality, it's not necessary and can often be a serious source of stress. My husband has been playing Ark all day, and I've been on Reddit or playing The Sims. We watched a couple of episodes of 10th Kingdom earlier, and that's all we've done together today. We're in the same room, but we're not doing the same things. This is not a bad thing. It's called being comfortable together. As someone who just started an official relationship, I got a glimpse of this when I went to visit my boyfriend's place about a week ago. I asked if I could try Overwatch on his PC, since I only have the console version, and he seemed happy to let me go ahead and do my own thing. He booted up Diablo on the couch, and I played a couple of matches. I asked him, "Are you sure this is okay? I can totally get off and spend time with you." He replied, "You're enjoying yourself, right? I'm totally cool just doing my own thing. Just because one of us visits doesn't mean we have to spend every minute together." It made sense when he put it like that, and actually depicts what I've heard about other relationships even when the couples aren't cohabiting. A relationship where I can just be okay playing Baldur's Gate for several hours at a time seems pretty damn good to me. That's the goal. It's interesting when people get confused by this. I always considered relationships to be autonomous. We should both be able to live our own lives, but us being together makes it better. At the same time, romantic relationships are just that. You should be dating your best friend. Your best friends sometimes do nothing with each other. My friend and I once got into a study room after class and did our homework for literally 2 hours with minimal talking. I looked at her around 1 in the afternoon and asked if she's hungry, and we grabbed lunch. It's kind of the same thing. You have to be honest with them, especially when it's hard to do. Me and my boyfriend get uncomfortably real with each other sometimes, and something we've both learned is to listen to criticism without getting defensive. And when giving criticism, we don't attack each other, no matter how angry or sad we are at each other. I've had him call me out for certain behaviors that nobody has ever called me out on, and I've done the same for him. We're both better people for it because when we get it all out on the table, we have no choice but to work on ourselves. There's a reason it's called the honeymoon phase, and eventually you won't have as much to talk about other than how the day went, or might not always feel those butterflies in your stomach when you think about them. That's when it becomes a test in the relationship, and you both have to work on it to make it work. You'll get into fights, but learn to get over them, or I doubt it will last. Resentment can kill feelings for someone. I wanted to add, I'm not a love or relationship expert by any means. I'm just going off things I've seen and gone through with my own husband. You trade butterflies for familiarity, excitement for comfort. I love the comfort stage. The butterflies are great and all, but being in a constant state of infatuation would get exhausting after a few years. It's so nice to do absolutely nothing with your person, or not see them for a day or two if you don't live together, and still be completely content with them. In an ideal relationship, the contributions are 60-40, where both partners are the ones trying to give 60%. My mom asked an elderly couple who'd been married for decades what their secret was. They said that they act as if being nice to each other is a competition. That's always stuck with me. I've been married for 28 years. When I was engaged, a dear lady, then in her 80s and still very much in love with her husband of 60+ years, told me this: "Just because he's your husband, don't think he requires less regard than your friends. Before you yell at him for something, anything, ask yourself if you would yell at your friend for the same thing." What she was trying to say is that being married, together, is not a free pass to stop being a decent human being. You're going to get annoyed by the socks on the floor, but is it an excuse to fly off the handle? Respect and common courtesy are my recommendation, and you don't need to keep score. There's no winner. I can't praise this enough. I see couples snap at each other all the time over the silliest stuff and wonder how it must feel to be constantly on guard like that. Just be nice to each other. If you can't stand to be nice to each other, call it a day, man. Life is too short. My husband and I have to check in on each other every once in a while. For some reason, it seems like I'm meaner to my husband when my family is around, and he's meaner to me when his family is around. We come up with a phrase that we whisper if we're in public: "Quit being a butthole." We use it to remind each other to be nice without having to justify ourselves at the moment. It really works because if he says it to me, I automatically check myself, even if I don't think I'm being mean. I love him and I never intend on coming off as a butthole. Listen to them, communicate with them, compromise sometimes, and frick them regularly. To elaborate on compromise, it doesn't always mean something we'll both enjoy. At times, it will very likely mean today we do something that my partner likes and that I sparingly tolerate, but tomorrow that reverses. My ex refused to see that side of a compromise. I would see horror films with her, because to me, spending time with her was more important than avoiding seeing a horror film. If I wanted to see a film that she wouldn't like, asking her to see it with me was forcing her to do something that she didn't want, and was therefore unfair. And for the love of God, do not start dating a new person as a way to get out of a bad relationship. That is extremely unfair to the new person you entered into a relationship with. Guy here, this probably sounds simple, but here's what I've learned. Know yourself, where you're at in life. If you're in a crap storm, legal crap, money crap, substances and booze crap, legal crap, you're probably not ready for anything serious. Clean up your act first. Be honest. No matter how fricked up your crap is, if you want to move forward in a serious way, all the cards have got to be on the table. Take it slow, get to know each other, but in the end, no secrets. There is some crap that's nobody's business, but I'm not talking about that. Know her, what she's been through, and what she wants out of life. You both need to be pretty much on board. You need to be heading for the same thing. Kids, buy a house, or gypsy life, doesn't matter. Keep an eye on things. You need to make sure she's doing okay, and let her know you're doing okay. Same with her to you. After that, it's just dodging stupid. Sometimes you have to spend years with crappy people to realize what you deserve. It was never a waste. You needed the experience to figure out what works best for you or what to avoid. You'll never forget your exes. They were there for a reason. Good to get something from the School of Hard Knocks on here. A lot of these is from people who seem to have been happily married or together for a long time. Sometimes you have to muddle your way through until it works. Relationships are work. They aren't always fun, you won't always be madly in love, and you can't put them on a shelf and ignore them. No, but you shouldn't shun the work. Too many of my friends are toxic in their relationships, ending them summarily just because any work is seen as too much. Or let relationships turn toxic because it's easier than maintaining healthy ones. Always be mindful and thoughtful to that person's love map. Like they might need a quick text every morning when you get to work letting them know that you're safe. It makes zero sense to you, but knowing it's something small and means the world to them, well, why the hell not? They might get stressed out, and you helping clean the house for when they finished work might mean more to them than someone else you've been with who wanted flowers to show love. Know what it is that your partner loves and make them feel loved too. And if it's just a text to say you love them and you're safe, it's a 10-second message to type. For frick's sake, that's so little time in the span of an entire day. Why not do it if you know that it makes them happy? A little off topic, but I've found that prioritizing the relationship correctly helps a lot. My roommate is my best friend, but he's a roommate first, a coworker second, and a friend third. We talk about finances and housework completely differently than we shoot the crap. This helps maintain efficient lines of communication regardless of what's going on. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. If they're mean, if they're vindictive, if they use you, if they show you that they don't really care about you, believe them. If they make you feel inadequate, on edge, scared, nervous, unworthy, or like a disappointment, believe them. If they're entitled, narcissistic, sociopathic, manipulative, or unfair, believe them. Life isn't a movie, and you can't fix people who don't want to be fixed. More often than not, they're just who they are. So take off the rose-colored glasses and stop thinking love will find a way. If it isn't working, change it. Don't spend your precious time lamenting over a person who wouldn't genuinely lament over you. This sounds bleak, I know, but relationships and love are supposed to be the most beautiful things in the universe. If your relationship is not improving your quality of life on the aggregate, you need to seriously reassess what you want in life, because you deserve better. You only get so much time to find people in your life that make it worth living. Don't get caught up on people who will make you wish you'd never lived it. Yes, you gotta make sure you're choosing them as advertised, not falling in love with their potential. Don't think your perspective is bleak at all. I think it's balanced and disillusioned. In related vernacular, choosing to believe who someone is a great example of living life on life's terms. It's not always easy, but it gets you out of a lot of unnecessary wrestling matches. Probably not going to get this right, but it hit me the hardest after spending 5 years in a toxic relationship. The idea that everyone in their lives is working toward creating a jigsaw, each part of their life, be it work, relationships, or hobbies, make up parts of that jigsaw. Everyone's is different. Some people's careers make up the edges, the less important and interesting parts. Some people's are their relationships. What's important is the center of the puzzle. That's what people are working towards, their life's goals. When you're in a relationship, your puzzles combine. You eventually start working towards a shared goal. You might make some compromises on what goes to the outer edges, but you should both be working toward the same center. Occasionally, it turns out that the centerpiece you were working towards with your significant other isn't what you thought it was. This sucks, believe me, it really freaking does, but there's nothing wrong with cutting your losses. If you're going for a different jigsaw and the pieces don't fit, you won't get a coherent picture. I hope I explained it right, and yes, it's been taken from Daniel Sloss. He puts it way better than I do, so I would recommend checking him out on Netflix. If you go into a marriage or long-term commitment with the impression that you'll be happy all the time and your life will only change for the better, you're absolutely wrong. Be realistic that there will be days where you won't be able to stand each other, your lives may absolutely hit rough patches, and you will not agree on how or why that situation occurred, or even how to get out of it, and the like. Came here to say this, and when you have kids it tends to get even more difficult and adds even more fights and resentment. Life changes, and so do relationships. The butterflies and weak knees only last so long, and that's okay. It's not a bad thing, it's just different. Don't just look for the person who makes your heart race, look for someone who you can also see being best friends with. Because in the end, that's what you become, best friends. Friends fight, but best friends always, or usually, find a way to work through it together. Oh, and it's also my experience that having one shared hobby and one independent hobby helps too. My husband and I game together, but if I need a break from him or vice versa, I'll go read a book and he'll watch sports or whatever. A study of long-term relationships found that successful relationships have one major thing in common. The spouses are verbally supportive of each other's interests and thoughts. For example, if your spouse is very excited about Pokemon Go and wants to tell you all about the monsters that they caught that day, the supportive spouse would listen to them talk about it and be excited for what they're excited about, even if they don't know how the game's played or they think that it's stupid. The couple that's going to divorce, that other spouse would say, "I don't care, that game's for kids," or be generally dismissive of the conversation and change topics. Support what they're excited about as much as you can, even if it's just listening with a smile on your face while you do a shopping list in your head. Without bypassing the obvious one, which is the importance of communication, my mother always told us how you say something is as important as what you're saying. From the tone to how a subject is approached or delivered can make the difference between opening a dialogue or having an argument. Another good one I've seen around Reddit, it's you, plural, versus the problem. If your significant other has a healthy relationship with their ex, especially when they have kids together, it's a good sign. Don't go to sleep angry is bullcrap, especially if you have little kids. If you and your partner are sniping at one another, disengage and get some sleep if it's possible. Most of the fights my husband and I ever had was because one or both of us were exhausted or hangry. But set a time to pick it back up, please. If my husband just says frick it and goes to bed during an argument, I'm angry. If he says, I need sleep, let's talk tomorrow after dinner, I'm much better. I need to know it's going to be resolved in a timely fashion, and we're both much more reasonable after sleep and cooling down. Choose them. It's not about winning an argument, making a point, having enough time, or giving enough gifts, any of that crap that makes your heart either soar or tremble in the moment. It's about choosing them, knowing them, learning them. Equally as crucial, they choose you back. It's about choosing this person to hold your hand through every moment of every day for the remainder of anything and everything you'll ever experience. Every decision you make has them as a factor. It's about respect and admiration and giving credit where it's due. It's about the truth, about trusting them with the truth, and trusting them to tell it. Choose them, completely. Relationships are not there to fix you. If you aren't happy with yourself, the relationship won't make that a reality. When you want your partner to be fit, attractive, and dress well, don't forget that they want that as well. Want the best for the other person, not for yourself. That's why jealousy is poison. You want your significant other to look good, but only for you? Get a clue. Give them something to want in return. Be a success. Take care of yourself. Learn something every day. Don't waste your time. Be kind and demonstrate that daily. You get what you give. Do the dishes. What's the best witty comeback you've ever witnessed? Back in 10th grade, we had a long-term substitute physics teacher, younger guy, so the tough guys in class wanted to have a pee-pee measuring contest with him, like daily. They constantly made fun of him and joked about his wife. One day, I didn't hear the start of it, but one kid said something like, "I'll bury my face in your wife's chest." Teacher had obviously had enough and said, "No, the only D's you're ever going to see are your grades." The class exploded, nobody ever told on the teacher for saying that, and the guys stopped messing with him. Could a teacher even get in trouble for saying something like that at your school? They certainly wouldn't at mine. They were given wide latitude, especially if provoked. The only case of a teacher getting in trouble for crap was when a math teacher hit a kid for saying something about his, the teacher's, girlfriend. In other words, physical violence could get a teacher in trouble. Words, other than presumably slurs or maybe things that were entirely unprovoked, couldn't. Our geography teacher didn't even use our names, just called us little craps, vermin, emo kid with shampoo deficiency, etc. And we loved her. Sitting in a bar in a country well known for working girls, a guy walks in and starts yelling at a girl, "B-word, you gave me VD." She looked at him and said, "No, I didn't, you bought it." That guy got burned twice. I miss my late uncle. He was the wittiest motherfricker I ever knew. Not a joke teller, just had great one-line comebacks that were never mean, just funny. My favorite was when he went out to eat at a diner with his wife and my mum, just the three of them. The waitress said to him, "Lucky you get to eat with two ladies." My uncle replied, "Yeah, but can you hurry it up? I have to get home to my wife." My Uncle Bob was in a jewelry store a few years ago to buy a present for his longtime girlfriend. They'd been together for over 10 years and had a kid. The manager of the store was helping him as they were fairly busy, and she was called away on some managerial task and handed him to another employee, saying, "Would you help this man? He's looking for a bracelet for his wife." And my uncle said, "Oh no, this is for my girlfriend. I wouldn't spend money like this on my wife." He said the following stunned silence was deafening. He's also pretty deadpan, so they probably thought he was serious. "He seems like a funny guy." Could have been the same guy that came into my restaurant, and when asked by the hostess how he was, he replied, "Well, my wife and girlfriend have left me, so I'm looking for 2 new girls." I mean, let's hope that last one was a joke. There's something to be said for being comfortable enough with your relationship to pull these jokes off directly in front of your spouse, like the first guy did. My mum's dad passed away a couple of days previously. The night before the funeral, a dark and stormy night, the funeral home called 9 p.m. to tell my mother she had forgotten a tie for the suit for tomorrow's showing. She freaked out, realizing that she would have to drive over to the nursing home to fetch a tie and then drive to the funeral home. Dad, who loved himself his clip-on ties and had many of them, said, "Oh, don't go doing that trip on a night like tonight at this time of night. Just grab one of my clip-on ties and take it with you in the morning." My mum, who actually hated that my dad had never learned to tie a tie, responded without missing a beat, "My father would never be caught dead wearing a clip-on tie." Seconds after she realized what she said, she burst into tears. Savaged from beyond the grave. Grandpa: in my day, kids were seen and not heard. Grandson: so are the movies. Was talking to a friend about preferred positions in bed with a partner, and he said, I like being on the bottom because all I do is frick up anyways. Classic self-roast. Not witnessed firsthand, but heard the recounting or legend many times. Growing up, a friend's older brother nearly got kicked out of high school for this exchange. The teacher, teaching about Jewish law around bestiality that's strictly forbidden, looks at a student and says, Does this upset you, David? David says, Yeah, it means I can't do the deed with your wife anymore. He had to graduate late since he wasn't allowed back into that class. When I was training for my current job, our teacher chose to inform us that he and his wife had chosen not to procreate by saying, All my children have 4 legs and tails. I have no idea where it came from, but I spat out, Holy crap, I'd hate to see what your wife looks like. My class busted out laughing, teacher included. He went a little hard on me the next couple of days, but was a good sport in general. We had a lot of fun in that class, and a big part of that was all the crap slinging. Overly condescending boss looking over my work. Can I ask a stupid question? Me, on my last week at that job, you seem overqualified. You have a lot of options here. Sure, I've seen you do it before. In my experience, yes. It's one of your core competencies. I stole this line from American Beauty and paraphrased it, but when my boss would say, Hey, have you got a second? I'd answer condescendingly, For you, boss, I've got at least 30. He had a good sense of humor and thought it was funny every time. Works for, Have you got a minute? 2. For you, I've got 3. Another good response to, Can I ask a stupid question? Is, You just did. Do you need to ask another? I had a supervisor who was making fun of a guy's last name. The guy took it and didn't really say anything. When he was done, the supervisor asked him to email him something, and the guy wanted to clarify the spelling of the supervisor's last name, which was Windsor. He said, Your name doesn't have D in it, right? The supervisor said no, so the guy said, Okay, just ooshbag then, and then walked away. Overheard. First guy, braggart and jerk, I've got this great new job. I've got over 100 guys under me. Second, smartass, what are you, mowing lawns at a cemetery? How many are on top, is what I would have said. Comedian. I remember the first time I did the deed with someone. Girl in the audience, Yesterday? Audience was laughing. Comedian, I'm glad you remember. Audience, screams. I saw that video too. The text really doesn't properly convey how much the audience laughed at the heckler's joke, and how quickly and completely the comedian won the audience back. I was 13 in dance class with some older, catty girls. One of them was picking on me, which ended with her remarking, Bite me. I responded with, I'm trying to cut fat from my diet. Entire team heard it and proceeded to chastise me for being so mean. Served her right, the cow. Jimmy Carr was at another comedian's show and he started laughing. If you've seen him, you'll know how distracting that would be. The guy on stage, can't remember who it was, brutally savaged him with, Jimmy, when I come to see your shows, I don't laugh at your jokes. Up until this moment, I've never appreciated how tough Jimmy Carr's strangled chicken of a laugh is to imitate. My apologies to the listeners. I remember some guy talking about this encounter he had in a grocery store. He was behind this woman who was giving the cashier a bunch of crap over something. She was being a real chump, and finally, sick of her attitude, he tells her to lighten up and stop holding up the line. He's getting kinda teed off that she's double-barreling this kid who's done nothing wrong. So she whips around on him and says, This is none of your business. And he responds, Listen, lady, I'm a veterinarian. B-words are my business. Don't know if that story's true, don't care. I thought it was amazing. Also effective, I'm a gynecologist. C-words are my business. I'm a proctologist. Buttholes are my business. Urologist works too. Members are my business. Guy in grade school was really into war history and building army models, fighter jets, aircraft, carriers, etc. He was quiet and smart, but handsome and part of the main crowd, athletic, etc., but very much a history/war buff. At a party, for whatever reason, he was kind of in an argument beef with one of the hotter and more popular girls in class. The greatest comeback I've ever heard was as follows. Girl, whatever, Dan, why don't you go play with your model planes? Guy, immediately without missing a beat, great idea, I can land them on your flat chest. The reaction from the crowd added insult to injury as people went bonkers like it was a walk-off home run in a playoff baseball game. Never have I ever heard a better comeback, real or scripted, ever since. During middle school math class, one of the boys, overweight, was being made fun of by this petite girl. "You should put on a bra, you don't need it." "You should take off your bra, you don't need it." The class went, "Oh," and this guy got a few fist bumps. She cried. I've said a similar one. When I was at the beginning of the 7th grade, I didn't have any hair on my legs. This obnoxious girl noticed and said in front of everyone in the class, "Do you shave your legs?" real loud. I responded, "No, and by the looks of it, you don't shave yours either." Her smirk went to an instant frown, and the class went, "Whoa!" like you said, and the teacher laughed. Teacher was real chill. My grandfather died quite a bit before his time, and my grandmother would get a lot of calls for him. One telemarketing firm was particularly pushy, and one day an unbelievably condescending salesperson called and demanded to speak to the man of the household. My grandmother, who was normally restrained to a fault, replied, "Well, as soon as he comes back from the dead, I'll have him call you," and slammed down the phone. They actually did stop calling after that. A student told another one he wasn't the sharpest crayon in the box. That one responded with, "You're the sharpest because no one wants to work with you." Before you read on, please know that my relationship with my 14-year-old son is built on giving each other a hard time. I said a bad word, don't remember which or why. "You're a horrible mother." If I'm so horrible, how did you turn out so awesome? "I spent a lot of time with Dad." I got wrecked. "Son, can't wait to put you in a home." Me, "I should have drowned you in the bathtub." He's 21 and a butthole. My mum has a wicked sense of humor, and so does my brother. My brother is the middle child. My older sister and I would call my mum at least twice a day each. My brother would rarely call, which hurt her. She started telling him that I guess she failed as a mother and as he doesn't love her. He responded that she could always call him, which has led to at least 3 years of, "To my mother, cold and distant." Cakes, cards, text messages, you name it, from my brother. Had a really witty teacher from my game design class. The vice principal hated him for whatever reason. One day we were all studiously working with our headphones on, programming away while our teacher was up front reading a book. Very available and approachable if we had any suggestions. Then the VP walks into the room. "VP, Mr. Teacher, it has come to my attention that you have absolutely no control over your class. This is unacceptable." Teacher gives him a fairly nonchalant stare, coolly and calmly places his book down, and claps his hands loudly 3 times, which was his very effective way of getting our attention while listening to music. Mind you, the following occurred without us knowing why the VP was there or what he'd said. Teacher: "Okay, class, listen up. I've got an exercise for you. This'll only take a few minutes. First and foremost, everybody stand up." We all stood up in near unison very quickly. "Good. Now all I want you to do is leave the room and stand outside in the hallway, and no matter what this guy says," as he points a finger at the VP, "do not come back into the room until I say so. Okay, go." We all exit the room, a little intrigued by what was going on. "Okay, VP, bring them back in the classroom." We didn't budge. To this day, that's one of my favorite stories to tell. That's a pretty big flex, to be honest, even if it's not quite in the neighborhood of the quick and snappy comebacks and the rest of the thread. Nice job though, teacher. When I was in high school, this very large, overweight kid who always picked on me waited till things got quiet in the classroom and said, "Dave eats wang." Everyone laughed and I got embarrassed and nervous, and a few seconds later, after people finished laughing, I stuttered out, "Yeah, well, you eat everything." I don't know where that came from, but holy crap, the entire room lost it. Haha. Special ed student: "You're so dumb, you make me look like a genius." I was the instructional aide and had to stop the other kid from trying to fight him, but that burn was so sick it got a chuckle out of me. One of my prouder moments. I was 17 and a 12 or so year old kid came up to me. "Hey babe, can I have your number?" "Why? Do you need a babysitter?" Not exactly a comeback or insult, but once in biology class we were going over DNA and genetics. We were talking about how traits can be inherited from parents to offspring flowers, and how some could have all the same traits and some could have mixed traits. The packet we used called the same traits flowers purebred and the other ones mixed. Then a girl in the class asked a question. "Have we ever tried to make purebred humans?" Teacher: "Yeah, some Germans in the 30s and 40s tried to." "Really? What happened?" World War II, followed by laughter from the rest of the class. I remember reading the possibly apocryphal story of a student being told no excuse would be accepted for not taking a test that was the next day. Some student decided to be funny and said, What about sheer exhaustion from all the climaxes? To which the teacher replied quickly, I guess you'll have to write it with your other hand then. Churchill and some lady were having an argument. Lady: Winston, if you were my husband, I would put arsenic in your morning coffee. Churchill: Madam, if you were my wife, I'd drink it. Oh boy, have I got an answer for this one. So I'm sitting in my chemistry class, and there's a dude sitting ahead of me, Jeff. He's just minding his own business when two other dudes behind me, Butthead 1 and Butthead 2, proceed to start calling his name and ignoring him whenever he turns around. Just trying to annoy him, I suppose. Important to note, Jeff is a pretty intelligent guy, whereas Butthead 1 and Butthead 2 are so inbred they could be a sandwich. After this happens a few times, Jeff finally turns around and drops this line. Hey, Butthead 1, can I borrow one of your extra chromosomes? Overheard two guys in a restroom while at the urinals. Guy 1 tries to embarrass Guy 2. Guy 1, what's with that red ring on your wang? You need to get that checked out. Guy 2, it's just your mom's lipstick from when I saw her last night. Decent comeback, but the real burn is going to come from whatever red ring condition that guy has on his eggplant. The class clown of my classmates, let's call him K, was known for notoriously teeing off teachers with crude, obscene, and insulting jokes. Well, one day, K decided to ask a 30-something-year-old teacher, Miss, ever had a baby? In which the teacher replied with a simple no, but that's not where it ends. K then said to the teacher with a face that only appears on the stupidest of people, well, I could give you one. Which caused a few sniggers in class. The corners of the teacher's mouth curled into a smile, and with grace she walked up to her desk and said, No, Kay, I don't want to adopt you, which caused the whole class to erupt into laughter and Kay to shut up for the rest of that year in English. This is still one of the best comebacks I've ever heard, so simple, yet so powerful. Oh, you might be able to get away with that in math class. Maybe history. But that kid had no chance against someone who had a far better grasp of the English language than he did. Me and a buddy were at GameStop just browsing and hanging out. Employee comes up to us and asks if we need help finding anything. We told him we were just looking. This was right after the Nintendo DS XL just came out, and he starts trying to sell us on it. Me never having been the handheld gamer type, I told him I wasn't really interested. He decided his ace in the hole would be touting the newer, bigger 4-inch screen. Having enough, I responded, Take it from me, 4 inches isn't that impressive. That was the end of his sales pitch. One time I was at a coffee shop with my good friend and I saw a dime on the floor. Jokingly, I gave it to him and said, There, you can buy yourself a life with this. It kind of sounds funnier in my language, and he quickly answered, I'll just buy yours and give you back the change. I definitely envy people the ability to fire this kind of thing from the hip. I think I could memorize something like this and hold it ready for the right occasion, only to still completely mess it up when the time came. In high school, there was a jerk who was a local star athlete and was pretty much the high school cool athlete bully stereotype. His attempts to pick on people were pretty lame, but people always laughed at them because he was cool, and you always laugh at what the cool kid says. He liked to do the, an 80-year-old woman called, she wants her upper back strength back, kind of jokes. He also wanted to go to Cornell on a wrestling scholarship. Not only did he not get the scholarship, he also didn't get accepted to Cornell. One day, when he was in the middle of his so-and-so called routines, I said, Hey, Cornell called. Oh wait, never mind, no they didn't. Actually, I didn't think of that until the next day and is one of my life's greatest regrets. The jerk star called and… Was he a paper salesman named Andy? No, Andy got into Cornell. Douche frat guy walks into a circle of my friends at a party. Frat guy, is this the intellectual circle? My friend, not anymore. Was he just trying to be friendly? With my friend at the bar where his girlfriend was working. She stopped by our table and spouted out general complaints about having to work. My friend hands her a straw. She just stares at him blankly. He says, Suck it up. I've used this one before on a coworker when I worked at the convenience store/deli. She was complaining about some nonsense or another, and I seized the opportunity. The look on her face was priceless. I was just so casual about it, like I barely looked up from what I was doing when I handed it to her. I don't think she even realized I was listening. Our boss found it absolutely hilarious. Sitting around a fire, drinking, telling lies and whatnot, and a female friend asks, Out of 10, how would you rate yourself in bed? Quick as a flash, friend of mine says, 11. Come on, be serious, who am I going to tell? Hopefully, everyone. 11. I used to work in retail. Myself and the head of grocery had a call with a supplier where they were going to push really harsh trading terms with us in the short term because we were updating our contract to hold them more accountable for poor performance, delivery, etc. After the call, everyone was very busy discussing that we would just respond in kind later on. The head of grocery pipes up and says, "Yeah, we're going to get screwed in the butt now, but at least they'll get crap on their wangs." When I was a high school teacher, our assistant principal was caught having an affair. She divorced her husband, but it was all over the news. A few weeks later, a kid hung a banner in the hallway that read, "I can't cheat in school, but Mrs. Blank can cheat on her husband." Cool. Pretty good comeback from a 16-year-old. Must be a pretty small town for an affair to be on the news. Extremely small town. Tune in at 7 o'clock to see who hasn't cut their grass this week. There was a guy smarting off to the new guy dating his ex. "So, what's it like inside a hoo-ha that's used material?" The new guy? "Oh, only the first 2 inches were used. The other 6 are plain sailing." My wife gets mean on vodka. Not like starting a fight mean, more like destroy all ego mean. Winding down a party, close to blackout drunk, and most of us can't even remember how the conversation ended up, with chubby friend insulting wife's lack of chest and implying she should go buy some boobs. Wife says, "But those are expensive." Chubby friend cups his moobs and says, "These did cost me quite a bit." The wife closes the night with, "Just how much do you have to spend at Burger King to get a bosom like that?" I have an issue learning spoken language, so when I started French, I was doing horribly despite how much I was working. During a parent-teacher conference, my French teacher told my parents that I was incapable of learning French. My dad leaned in and said, "Madam, there are mentally impaired children in France who are capable of learning French. He's capable of learning, you're just incapable of teaching." I was tending bar at a place in Buffalo back in the 90s. Pretty girl at the bar lifts her glass to take a drink and accidentally spills some down the front of her shirt when she gets the lip of the cup to her mouth. The 4 to 5 people around her say nothing, and without missing a beat, she laughs and says, "Huh, I must be full."
Reddit, what's the most messed up food your parents would make regularly when you were a kid? Get ready for a lot of cursed things in this post. My mom would mix cooked mac and cheese with applesauce in a bowl and give it to us. My mom was from the, quote, boil the ever-loving crap out of everything school of cooking. Carrots boiled to sad orangish lumps, broccoli steamed beyond any recognition. Corn may have started fresh, but by the time she was done with it, it resembled creamed corn but lacking any possible flavor or texture. Barbecue chicken? Boil that son of a gun completely before you blacken it on the grill, lest you and everyone you love die horrifically from salmonella. The things she would do to a steak are crimes against humanity. Combine all this with an 80s desire to avoid salt at all costs, and my dad's pathological fear of bad breath resulting in a blanket household ban on onions and garlic, and mealtime was a grayish, disappointing place. I now take cooking very seriously. When they were younger, my grandma and her siblings were forced to eat cream of mushroom soup sandwiches. Her dad would slice the soup like cranberry sauce and spread it across the bread. The thing is, listener, this is an example of 2 great things that don't go together. Cream of mushroom soup? My mom uses it to make tater tot casserole. It's very good. Adds a lot of richness, savoriness, and creaminess. Sandwiches? Can't go wrong with them. They're one of my favorite things to make. But a cream of mushroom soup sandwich? Are y'all out here drinking your sandwiches? My mom liked to make spaghetti. That's not weird, I hear you say. Let me mention that she made it with raisins. I already don't like this post, but we're gonna keep going. Like, get a pot of water boiling, throw in the noodles, and some raisins at the same time. No spaghetti sauce afterward, just cooked spaghetti and rehydrated raisins on a plate. She was very proud of this dish, and she didn't understand why we hated Mom's day to cook. Edit. Guys, I know a raisin is a dehydrated grape, but rehydrating it doesn't just turn it back into a grape. It turns it into some disgusting raisin juice bomb, which is even worse when warm. I'm really trying hard to understand the thought process that leads to a person deciding to cook spaghetti with raisins, but I'm drawing a blank. So, bear with me on this, but I have an explanation. Not a justification, but an explanation. On the island of Sicily, one of the regions of Italy, some meat dishes actually include raisins or golden raisins. For example, braciole. That's braciole. It's a meat dish that's a roulade, which is a rolled and stuffed meat that contains stuff like cheese, herbs, and breadcrumbs. I've never had raisins with meat before, but if Italy is doing it, home of the best pizza and pasta in all of the world, I have no reason to judge them. Quote, asparagus salad, which consisted of 5 to 6 limp, cold pieces of canned asparagus served on a bed of iceberg lettuce with a glob of mayo on top. Yeah, there's no bearing with me on this one. This is just white people food. We were beyond poor, so many of my mother's creations were simply a matter of making do with what we had. That didn't make them any more palatable, though. The two most memorable: canned peas cooked in powdered milk and served over toast. She called it, quote, pea wiggle. We had it at least once a month. Canned spaghetti sauce and a slice of surplus cheese placed on a slice of bread and toasted in the oven. This was, quote, poor man's pizza. I actually loved this as a kid. Tried it again a few years ago and was less impressed. Not everything can be credited to a lack of money. She used to slice up kielbasa and steam it. The result was very much like styrofoam chips. This is a great time to mention the YouTube channel The Wolf Pit, the WOLFE Pit, all one word. It focuses on cooking on a really tight budget, so I highly recommend it if you're looking to eat cheap without having asparagus salad. My dad got into a phase of watching Emeril Lagasse, and it inspired him to try and be fancy. I'll never forget. He made these hamburger patties and put chunks of bread mixed in with the raw meat, but the bread just absorbed all the blood. They looked like huge, mushy, bloody warts hanging off the meat. It was absolutely repulsive looking. Okay, after reading that nightmare sentence, let me tell you why you should put bread in your meatballs. If you take some day-old bread, tear it up into chunks, and soak them in milk or preferably heavy cream, maybe throw in some seasonings into it, that's called a panade. When mixed into your meatballs, it actually helps retain moisture and prevents dry, sad meatballs. But don't just stick plain white bread into your burgers, that's just not going to work out well for anybody. My mom used to make a Vietnamese noodle dish called bun dieu, but didn't always have time to make it from scratch, so she often used a canned broth. I am allergic to peanuts, and every time she made this dish, I would complain to her that I didn't want to eat anymore because my lips were swelling up and I was itchy. She is having none of that sass, obviously, and makes me eat the whole bowl. A few years down the line, she decides to read the ingredients label on the back and just says, you should probably stop eating that. As was the custom in the 1950s to the 1980s, when my parents were coming of age, my parents only ate vegetables boiled and unseasoned. So, boiled carrots, boiled Brussels sprouts, etc. No salt, no pepper, no olive oil or butter. This led me to believe that vegetables are supposed to taste bad. Later in life, I discovered seared, roasted, caramelized, and seasoned vegetables, and those things are the bomb. Every day, I'm caramelizing or roasting a veggie. Mom would make frozen whitefish, baked in an oven until it was overcooked and just dehydrated, shrunken fillets of white fish. Then, she'd serve it with boiled cauliflower and white rice. White entree, white starch, white vegetable, all served on a white plate. What did we drink? Yeah, milk. White milk. My mom made, and still makes, a dish called cat heads. It's basically chicken with cream of celery, some vegetables, and a bit of stew inside 2 rolled-up crescent rolls. It looks exactly like a shaved, cooked cat's head, so she called it that and we have it every Christmas. This comment actually says, so basically mini chicken pot pies but shaped like cat heads? I would eat that, and I gotta say, I agree with that. I freaking demolish chicken pot pie every time I have it. They would wrap bologna around a banana, and that was my snack. I don't know where the idea came from. I freaking hated it. I just don't know, guys. I grew up to become allergic to bananas. My grandma made leftovers casserole while my mom was growing up. You take a bunch of cooked noodles, whatever leftovers seem appropriate, add a can of cream of something soup, throw a topping on it, and bake it till it's food. My mother hated it. She called it one-pot glop. Grandma made it at least once every time we visited, and I loved it. Once when I saw her cooking it, I cheered, "Yay, one-pot glop!" The look of betrayal on Grandma's face was very confusing. I made one pot glot for breakfast this morning. Overcooked steak. Like leather tier overcooked. Grew up on a dairy farm, so beef was plentiful. But if we didn't choke down the shoe leather dinner, my mother would have a violent meltdown about how we were all ungrateful little jerks. My mom, God bless her, was not a very talented cook. She tried, but she just wasn't interested and didn't have the knack. At least I got a home-cooked meal most nights, so I can't complain. Mom used to buy these awful Polish sausages. She would take a few and throw them in a pot of water with a head of cabbage. Let everything boil for a while, and that was dinner. Mom called it, quote, bratwurst. I lived in fear of quote-unquote bratwurst my whole life until I was in college. There was a German festival and all of my friends were like, oh boy, let's go get some brats. I thought they were crazy. Then someone handed me a real brat on a bun with spicy mustard and sauerkraut, and I realized that I had been all wrong about the true nature of bratwurst. That was probably the best thing I learned in college. A dry ketchup sandwich. It was old stale bread that was broken in half for the 2 pieces of bread for a sandwich with ketchup in between them. No meat, no cheese, just ketchup. If we were lucky, the bread wasn't too stale and the taste kinda resembled French fries. This one just makes me sad. Like, not even in a pity way or oh, I can't believe that she would do that, she's so disgusting. This just sounds like a depression meal or a meal you would make if you were like in the negatives in your bank account. My mom loved making pork chops, but she cooked the heck out of them, so it was like eating rubber. We ended up calling the dinner Shake and Incinerate. My grandfather used to buy tubs of fish eyes and he would put them in all kinds of things. My scrambled eggs used to stare up at me. Not something they made regularly, made once, reheated leftovers for ages, but we ate it a lot for a while. My mom made what we came to call, quote, pepper soup. It initially was an accident. She was making a small batch of soup for dinner, and while shaking some black pepper in, the lid fell off and the entire container of pepper emptied itself into the soup. She scooped out what she could, but in the end, it was still way too peppery to eat. Ended up enlarging the batch of soup into 2 large canning pots, each about 5 gallons, before it was at a tolerable level. Us kids still found it way too peppery. Anyways, we ate that soup what seemed like every day for a couple months. We grew up dirt poor and relied heavily on the area's soup kitchens and food pantries. There were 5 of us kids with a stay-at-home mom, and my dad was unemployed for a few years, so we rarely could afford basic things like fruit. To keep us healthy, my dad would regularly fill an empty skim milk jug with water and add powdered milk plus powdered vitamin tablets, the type with the capsule, and shake it up, then put it in the fridge. We never really knew whether we were drinking actual milk or the vile false milk until we tasted it, since skim milk has the same appearance. To this day, my dad maintains that doing what he did kept us all healthy, as none of us got sick during his unemployment. I mean, geez, you gotta do what you gotta do. Props to that dad. My stepdad and mom used to make, quote, grilled cheese for lunch every weekend. Now, that's not so bad, right? Wrong. Bread with the knockoff Kraft processed cheese, microwaved for 2 to 5 minutes. No butter, no toast. Just soggy bread and burnt plastic cheese, if only in for 2 minutes. If it was cooked for 5 minutes, the bread would be rock hard and molten plastic. My parents have become great cooks now, but when my sister and I were kids, she was a total brat and a picky eater, so we'd wind up with plain, unseasoned chicken breasts and steamed broccoli and plain white rice way too often. And I wasn't allowed to put salt on it because salt was bad for me. And I guess it didn't occur to them to provide any condiment or something to give that crap some flavor. Okay, this isn't the first time I've heard of people's parents thinking salt is toxic, but one of my cousins is about the same age as my mom, and she is a salt fiend. We were at a Mexican restaurant one time, and she was shaking salt onto every single nacho she ate. She couldn't get enough. She wanted to be one with the salt. I swear if she ingested any more salt, she would have become a CSGO player mixed with a League of Legends streamer. I genuinely worry about the life expectancy of this woman. My mother makes this thing me and my brother can only refer to as compost salad. It starts on a skillet where she scrambles some eggs. Then, she adds 3 cups of kale and steams it, oftentimes burning the eggs in the process and releasing a vaguely fart-like scent into the atmosphere. Then, things get weird. She adds an entire can of kidney beans, bean water and all, mashing them into the eggy kale. She then adds cinnamon, nutmeg, curry powder, garlic powder, and salsa and Tabasco sauce. At this point, the smell is so nauseating it's nearly impossible to be in the same room as this abomination of a dish. After it's done being heated into mush, she puts it on a plate and adds vanilla yogurt on top. Looks like it was fished straight out of the trash. Needless to say, I refuse to let her make me food. And by the way, I really have no idea what's wrong with her, but something is definitely up if she thinks that this is an acceptable meal. Let me preface this by saying that my mother is in no way Hispanic. She is one of the whitest people I know. She grew up mainly in Central Florida and the Upper Midwest, rarely if at all coming into contact with Latin American culture except at the occasional restaurant. Despite this, she would routinely make, quote, arroz con pollo for dinner. This consisted of chicken, cooked until it was tough and chewy to ensure it was, quote, cooked through, and rolled in flavorless breadcrumbs from a can, served with a side of mealy, aggressively under-seasoned rice. Did I mention that there was almost no salt in any of this because salt was, quote, unhealthy? It was so unpleasant that I threw it right back up a few times, once even at the table. Somehow, she still wonders why I barely eat anything when I'm home for Thanksgiving. It amazes me how many of these posts mention a lack of salt. Your body needs salt. We specifically used iodized salt because a lack of iodine is one of the leading causes of preventable developmental problems in children. Pork and cider sauce. The cider in question was cheap as dirt White Lightning, the only time we actually bought it, I like to point out, and me and my sister hated it. We don't want this. Can we have something else? You ate it last time, so you must like it, so be quiet and eat it. We really don't like it. Tough. You'll eat what you're given or go hungry. My mom was awesome as we were growing up, and in all fairness, we did eat most of the things that we were given anyway, as she was a fantastic cook. But this was an abomination, beaten only by liver and onions. She stopped making it when I went to school hungry. I'd gotten up too late to eat breakfast, and the school phoned her up to express their concern and make sure there was nothing happening at home. As an American reading this, it grossed me out thinking of cooking pork in White Lightning. In America, that is usually home-distilled alcohol or moonshine. However, in the South, pork barbecue usually has a vinegar, cider-based sauce on it, and it's super tasty, so I could see where your mom was going with this. Yeah, but the only thing that was missing was the rest of the sauce! My grandma is an awful cook. She hates doing it, and you can definitely tell by the stuff she comes up with. Here's a few examples. Instant mashed potatoes with mayonnaise. Gag. Quote, peach cobbler, which was flour, peaches, and syrup. Fried chicken cooked long enough to burn it completely. Salt was the only seasoning she ever used. Spaghetti. No flavor. Just ground beef, never drained by the way, generic pasta sauce, and noodles. She got mad when I started using barbecue sauce to mask the nasty crap she made. Man, I put it in mashed potatoes, macaroni, rice, and meat. My mom was/is seriously the worst cook. The only time I ever ate anything good was when we had weekends with my dad and he took us to restaurants and let us order whatever we wanted. For a kid, I could eat a heck of a lot of lobster. My mom made these disgusting casseroles with fried Spam, Velveeta mac, and canned peas. Then it was topped off with those Kraft single slices and crushed up barbecue potato chips. She thought that was the ultimate in cooking. I still feel sick when I think about it. Sometimes for dinner, we would have chipped beef on toast, which is a disgusting, salty, Great Depression kind of food. And if it wasn't chipped beef, it was some kind of soup/tuna mixture over toast. If it came in a can, we probably ate it. This is probably why I taught myself how to cook. I went back home to visit last year, and I cooked dinner every night because I saw my mom pulling out the Spam and Velveeta, and there was no way I was going to let that happen. My dad didn't want me to leave after the 4th salted caramel apple pie I made. Not my parents, but growing up, I loved my grandmother's cooking. In retrospect, some of it was kind of weird. Her parents emigrated from Japan to Hawaii shortly after the turn of the century, and she'd have been about 7 when the Great Depression started. Combine that with World War II and frequent shipping issues, and she wound up with a lot of unusual culinary habits. Little Japanese lady, maybe 4'9" and 80 pounds on a good day, making spaghetti and adding corn. Her meatloaf had canned clams in it. I really love that one. Vienna sausages and Spam stewed in a sweet soy sauce broth, raw broccoli and sliced kamaboko fish cake sandwiches with lettuce, cucumber, and mayo, also pretty good actually. Cubes of raw tofu tossed with canned tuna, soy sauce, onions, and some other things. Growing up in Hawaii, I didn't think anything of it. If seaweed and raw fish are part of the regular menu, none of that stuff's any weirder. Anyway, she made all of that stuff for her family, plus more traditional items like maki sushi, mochiko chicken, and other delicious things. For herself though, she'd maybe have a few cubes of tofu, a bowl of miso soup, and some rice. She loved dessert and sweets, but even then, she'd take a piece of chocolate and cut it into fourths. I last saw her in 2010, when she must have been about 88. She had her good days and her bad days, but she didn't cook anymore. She passed away in 2014. I miss her. I'm gonna get gushy for a bit. I think this is one of the greatest things about cooking and food in general. Taste is one of the most powerful senses we have because it's the most intimate. Think about it, you're putting something inside your body that's going to end up everywhere else inside your body. When you eat something, you remember how it tastes. You have a vast memory of tastes, and those tastes remind you of memories. You ever hear the phrase, just like grandma used to make? That's because if you grew up on grandma's cooking, you have that, for lack of a better term, flavor connection. It's why some people cry when they have certain foods. It reminds them of home, or a loved one, or a precious memory. It's like that scene in Ratatouille when Ego has that dish Remy makes. It's not that it's made perfectly. It's made lovingly. Reddit, what did your crush do that absolutely killed your interest? This was in college. We were acquaintances and had a few classes together. He was cute, funny, and I totally had a crush on him. He asked me out to dinner and a movie. At the restaurant, he ordered the most expensive things on the menu: appetizers, drinks, lobster, and even dessert. When the bill came, he said, "You got this, right?" I was so embarrassed, I paid. Then I said I'd skip the movie because I wasn't feeling well, and he asked me to give him $20 for gas and for wasting his time. I didn't and just left. Ugh. After that, he couldn't seem to understand why I didn't want to go out with him again. I was giving her a place to sleep when she was feuding with her mother. After weeks of picking up after her, I dared to complain. She had a screaming fit, picked up her crap, and left. I was glad to be rid of her until later it got around to me that she was telling people on Facebook that I kicked her out for refusing to give me head. There's a lot I can forgive, but that was the first time I had ever had anyone just straight up make stuff up about me. Screw you, A. Her. Why are you leaving a tip? Me. Because the service was really good? Her. But she's fat. Bragged about drinking and driving. He told me that he and his friends have a, quote, nothing under 100 club, where they drink and then drive on the interstate going 100+ miles per hour and have to send a full-length Snapchat video of the speedometer to each other. 2 of my friends have been killed by a drunk driver 3 months prior. Well, I know someone whose tires are getting slashed. We went to Disneyland, where I had an annual pass with my friends and family for an event called Dapper Day, where you dress up in dapper clothing so everything looks very old-timey. I had done it for years with my friends, and he wanted to come, and my mom and siblings were going for the first time too. I was really excited, as it was the first time he had ever met my family. Well, we went on one ride with my family and my friends, and then he said, "Do you want to go on a ride? Just me and you?" I thought we'd come back and spend the rest of the day with them, but as soon as we were out of earshot, he was complaining about my family and how weird it was that they were there and he wanted to do Disney with just me. But he had known they were coming, so I was confused. Then we went on one more ride and he started complaining about how hot it was, how tired he was, and before lunch, he wanted to go home. I was super upset, but didn't want him leaving on his own, so I just went with him. But on the way home, I wished I had just let him leave and I could have stayed with all the people I loved. It was the first time in years my sister and my mom had been to Disney, And I didn't know it then, but it was the last time I got to go with my brothers before they grew up, and now they hate me. He was just some dude I dated, not a boyfriend or anything that lasted very long. I'm still so mad at myself for letting him ruin my day. But yeah, it absolutely killed anything I felt for him, and we broke up a few days later. Revealed his list of conquests. Not even my brother knows how many women I've slept with. Then he offered to take my virginity in the back of his pickup truck. I passed. I'm black, she's black, our crush was mutual. Then she found out I was once in a relationship with a white woman. She then jumped down a rabbit's hole of my, quote, betrayal of the black family and some other nonsense of my trauma of self-hatred. Never been turned off by anything faster than that. We were in the process of getting together. She had called over and we spent an afternoon watching movies and sitting close together. By about 8 in the evening, she was considering staying later and I was casually encouraging her. She asked if she could take a shower, and I was like, yeah, sure, of course. Glad that the bathroom was clean and tidy and I had fresh towels. Anyway, about 4 minutes later, she calls me saying she needs help with the shower, and I give her a moment to get a towel around herself and knock on the bathroom door. She opens it completely naked and shows me that she's having trouble with the shower controls. So I'm kinda unsure whether to make the move or start with the controls. So I go with the flow and show her this is hot and cold, this is pressure, this is rainforest, and this is power jets. In the 5 seconds it takes me to do this, she has sat on the toilet, which is kinda a weird thing because I need to be able to make the next move. And she's sitting on the toilet, naked, with the lid up, looking all disinterested. I'm thinking, I've screwed it up. When suddenly, kersplosh. And she takes a dump right in front of me. And then another one. I was just like, I'll leave you to it. She asked if things didn't work out if I would mind if she went out with my roommate. I said I couldn't possibly do that to him and left. He tried to discreetly take photos of my feet. Nothing against people who are into that, but the way he was going about it was super creepy. She asked me if I was good with kids because she was pregnant with her ex and that she's not good with kids. It was the first date. We were teenagers, he lived in a different province, and we used to chat on Skype. He wanted me to think he was cool or something and would always talk about his drug use. He ended up faking a heroin overdose when we were on chat together. I was hysterically crying and freaking out, thinking I was watching someone dying and was trying to figure out how to call 911 in another province when he, quote, snapped out of it and told me that he was actually okay. I didn't talk to him much after that. She said I, quote, smile too much. Screw you, I smile when I want to. I try to find joy. Kept arranging times to talk and whatnot, then always forgot or was not available. Oh god, as someone with ADHD, I really felt this one. I'm so worried this is going to happen to me one day. I tend to struggle with planning things if I want to participate in several social events, so I have to tell people in the current social event that I'll be going to another social event after I'm done with this one. Time for 3 back-to-back ones. Bullied the quiet kid in our class. Turned out to be the person eating everyone else's food from the break room fridge. Kissed me, and then, after he pulled away, told me he has a girlfriend. His sister actually approached me and let me know that he was once arrested for locking their other pregnant sister in their basement, went on a coke binge while she desperately tried to get out, and went outside to beat their unsuspecting neighbor's van with a golf club. That was a big ol' nope. This post is the equivalent of thinking, there's no way this is gonna get worse, and then it does. Yeah, I don't get washing. I just don't really like taking a shower or a bath or anything. Had a crush on this girl back in high school. She seemed like a sweet girl. After she rejected me, I let it go, but was still interested in maintaining some sort of friendship. Found out she was actually pretty toxic behind my back. She made fun of me for a lot of things that really didn't matter, like hand motions while talking, and I just lost interest in her entirely, even in a friendship. This was years ago on a first date. Tried to convince me to quit my job and put all my savings into gold bars, then demanded I let him read my tarot cards to see if we'd be a good fit. Nope, nope, nope. Huge crush on a fellow uni student. I was invited over for what I expected to be a platonic study date, but hey, any time spent is better than just being alone, or so I thought. Got there and found another student from class also. Okay, study group? Turns out her mom and her set us up for a full-press MLM pitch. Video, literature, the works. I stayed a bit not to be rude, excused myself shortly, and only talked to her in class just in passing from then on. Huge letdown. Edit, MLM means multi-level marketing, aka a pyramid scheme. Signing up to both buy and sell something while recruiting others to sell also. You get a % of all your other recruit sales also. All the percentages basically flow upward, so the only way to make any significant money is to be high in the tree, towards the top of the pyramid. It's all bullcrap basically. Told me he was only being nice to me because he was interested in a friend of mine. I see his Facebook post now. He is dumber than a box of rocks on a treadmill. Talked non-stop about himself and his accomplishments and never asked me one question about myself. She slept with my dad. She got blackout drunk at a party and violently crapped her pants. The smell alone completely turned me off of any interest I had. When I was a teenager, we worked together as lifeguards. I adored him so much until one day he just starts talking about this random woman that he didn't know and wasn't even there, that was wearing shorts. He said he was fine until she sat down and had some cellulite on her thighs. And he kept being angry and talking about how she should be doing squats to be more appealing. Like, his rant was angry and long and no one was adding to his conversation. Just silence. After that, I took off my rose-colored glasses and saw that he was, in fact, a huge douchebag. I'm kinda grateful he showed himself that way, because I was really into him until then. Could have been a bad time for my teenage brain. We worked together, and as I got to know him more, I learned he talked badly about everyone. Nurses that are amazing, he'd belittle. Talk about how certain people don't know what they're doing because they've asked for an ultrasound IV as they were struggling getting a vein on a heroin addict. The paramedics were worthless, doctors don't know what they're doing, who he thought was hooking up, and it completely turned me off. He's in his early 40s and into gossip more than my teenage daughter. He picked me up for our first date and his car was disgusting. Not talking a few trash items, the entire back seat and floorboard was completely covered in piled up trash, even up front. I had to step on empty McDonald's bags, old soda bottles, wrappers, etc. to even get in. And all he said was, just move it around with your foot. No sorry or anything. Made me feel like trash too. Like, dang, couldn't even clean up a little? Dumped me after 9 months because she wasn't ready for a serious relationship. Got into a relationship the next day and was married within 5 months. Told me that she didn't like me back anymore, but maybe if I waited long enough, she would like me like that again. Edit, she told me that I had gotten more critical lately and I, quote, changed. So she wanted me to change back before she would be with me. Too critical about every word I uttered under the name of sarcasm. Light the back fence of the school on fire to, quote, impress a mate. Edit, should add that he did it whilst high. Basically shut me down and made it clear to me that I was being the typical nice guy cliche. This is back when I was about 20. After a couple days of sulking, I started examining my behavior and realized she was absolutely right. Glad it happened. My ideas of how relationships should work were entirely twisted at the time. I got my stuff together shortly after, addressed my stupid and entitled behavior, worked on myself, mentally and physically, and eventually met an amazing woman who is now my wife. Scary to look back and think of how close I got to becoming one of those incel neckbeard types. I'll kiss you, but I'd never date you. Told me he liked dating broken girls so he could fix them. See you later, hard-on. Talked smack about every woman in his life. Should have seen the red flags earlier. Didn't realize until later that he probably did the same to me. Apparently, having an opinion about anything and speaking for yourself isn't a very ladylike thing to do. I was a midnight clerk at a truck stop, and a very, very good-looking man came in every night on his run to visit with me. He wore an ankle monitor for probation/parole. I asked about it, and he told me he was falsely accused of kissing his ex-wife's daughter. She was 13. I took his word. He seemed to be a real good guy. About 2 weeks later, we were bullcrapping and flirting, and a little girl about 12 years old came in with her dad. He looked that little girl up and down like a pervert. I was instantly sick to my stomach. She invited me over to her place, not as a date thing, but just to hang out as friends. Her house was absolutely filthy, and the glass of Coke she gave me had a hair in it. She was really cute and had a great personality and was genuinely a nice person, but as soon as I saw cat crap on the floor near the front door and just dirty everything, my crush disappeared and I left in a hurry. Well, it turns out he wasn't interested in girls, so I knew I had to kill my feelings or feel stupid for keeping them. Said she was starting up a group for LGBT youth. I asked her why, and then realized I had been barking up the wrong tree. Attempted to get through a horror movie together, and he kept letting the movie run, then rewinding the movie so that the horror never came. He pretended to be scared and would whine about the quote, scare that was coming. I guess he thought this was a cute gesture and would refuse to continue. It dragged a 5-minute scene into a 45-minute production of his, oh no, but I'm scared, no, I don't want to, this is terrifying. This was a guy who told me that he loved horror movies. He was full of really weird contradictions, but this was the straw that broke the camel's back. Edit, holy cow, this really blew up. Thanks for confirming I'm not insane for being annoyed with his actions. Thanks for the comments. A lot of them were hilarious. There were a lot of questions, so I'll try to answer some of them. What was the movie? It was an older J-horror movie called Kuchisake Onna. I think the English title was something like The Carved Mouth Woman. You mentioned he fast-forwarded. Do you mean rewound? Nope, I do mean fast-forwarded. He would rewind, then fast-forward to get to the beginning of the scene, and then pause it and whine about how it was going to be scary. He would also study the pause scene and look at clues to determine what the scare was going to be. Did you comfort/hug him? It was maybe the second time we'd hung out together, so even though I was interested in him, it was too early to say we were dating, and I was pretty shy and kind of reserved, so no hugging would have happened even if it had all gone well. What were you doing during the 45 minutes? I remember thinking, is he for real? Then thought that somehow maybe he was trying to tease me. He's a man of a lot of contradictions. So I played along for a while. By the time 15 minutes passed, I'm sure I was sighing audibly. I suggested that we stop and maybe watch something else. He refused. Close to the 30-minute mark, I think I snapped and said words to the effect of, come on, it's probably not that bad. Let's just finish. Go through with it and continue the movie. Don't waste time. He laughed and kept up the one-man show of, I'm a sensitive man and I'm not afraid to show it. I gave up and just started looking through my phone because this was such a waste of time. And finally, I think he realized he'd gone too far and let the scene play out. Did you end up finishing the scene? Nope, because he tried the same thing at the next scary part and I made my excuses and got out of there. Was he a child? Nope, fully grown male of legal age. Why didn't you just stab him? I considered it, but I wasn't carrying my Dexter kill room equipment and the blood would have been too messy. Just kidding. He was tall and I'm pretty short. Probably wouldn't have ended well for me. Did you let him know why you didn't want to see him again? Nope. I never told him that this was the defining moment in which I lost interest. He was also kind of controlling and had a number of really weird quirks that I won't bore my fellow Redditors with. Basically, we just didn't talk as much after that, and that was that. Dude was the perfect epitome of the term douchebag. He used to be nice to people only to gain their trust and then betray them. He was attractive though, and a smooth talker as well. We started talking, became friends, and I developed a crush on him. Unfortunately, I never knew then what type of double-headed snake he was. Then, on one day, I witnessed him throwing his best friend under the bus just to save his reputation. Completely lost interest, cut ties with him, and he gave no craps about it. Only then did I realize how toxic people can be sometimes. Started gaming with him and learned that he threw tantrums worthy of a toddler when losing matches. She physically shushed me in a group with her finger on my lips while I was singing along with my friends to a cover band. She ate a live snail. I was in 6th grade. She detested cats and insisted that I give up my furry buddy before she'd move in with me. It wasn't that she was allergic to cats. She issued the ultimatum because, according to her, my cat, quote, received too much of my time and affection and she wasn't going to compete. We played Monopoly. That game brings out the absolute worst in people. Overheard her insulting my hobbies, clothes, hairstyle, personality, etc. with their friends. Now, I was never Prince Charming, but man, that hurt. He didn't believe in dinosaurs. One of those super religious types, and someone got into a conversation with him about dinosaurs, and he was absolutely convinced that, quote, dinosaur bones were put there by the devil to trick us. As a firm lover of dinosaurs, as soon as I heard that, any and all attraction disappeared. Bouncer at a bar I used to go to. I had a mad crush on him, and he was beautiful. He was a bit of a tart. Every night, some starry-eyed, equally beautiful woman would leave with him. Being a bit of a tart was not a deal-breaker for me. I was too back then, if not as successful as him, as I'm not a super pretty girl. But one night, I guess he left crap too late. The hot girls were gone, and he informed me that he was willing to take me home that night. No. Nothing less sexy than, that'll do, pig. Being treated like a sure thing, and of course the answer is going to be yes, because how would someone like me turn down someone like him? Being rude to the waiter and complaining that food is taking too long during dinner rush hour. I worked in the industry for a year. It's not easy when being slammed during rush. Started dating my best friend after flirting heavily with me for a week. She offered to drive and pick me up in her car because we had plans to go out to dinner and get to know each other better. I realized after about 20 minutes she was not driving to the restaurant and instead stopped at a gas station to get into someone else's car and buy drugs. Basically made me an accessory to a drug deal under false pretenses. My 18-year-old self thought it would be cute to invite him to a Christmas parade, but this dude had the audacity to ask me why I thought he would ever be interested in someone like me. Girl in car behind him honked when the light turned green. He got out of the car and began screaming and banging on her windshield. That's when I knew he was a psycho and I needed to get out of that relationship. Took me a destroyed home and 2 restraining orders later, but we've been broken up for 3 years now. She brought a friend to dinner with us, which was okay, I didn't mind. Then they both shoplifted afterward while I was on the other side of the store. Told her I didn't date thieves and she broke down apologizing. Chewed with her mouth open on our first date. I never thought something like that could kill my interest so rapidly. People who have signed non-disclosure agreements that have now expired or for whatever reason are no longer valid. What couldn't you tell us but now can? House Hunters guest checking in. I never made the show because I didn't close on the house. 1. I had to have a house under contract before going on the show. 2. They would select the other houses we were, quote, interested in. 3. I was assigned another significant other who was more, quote, interesting than my actual SO. That someone was making a wristwatch with 2 faces so you could set one to local time and one to the time you're from, for international travelers. My boss almost immediately broke it and had to pay. I was a model for a few big name/well-known makeup companies. I did several print ads for magazines and a few television commercials. The makeup artists do use the product advertised, but minimally. Like that mascara they're touting? It's over really good fake eyelashes, and they also used another brand of mascara along with the one they're trying to sell you. Also, the clothes in the ads you see are pinned to high heaven on the model. They fit nothing like they look. It's not you. It's not your body. It's fake advertising. Most of us models look just like you, wearing all that crap without the pins and tucks and double-sided tape. Did some work on the trading floor at Goldman Sachs. I had access to all trading accounts and transactions. Came across some shady-looking accounts which did not meet policy. It did not use clearly identifiable name, and I could not find records of creation or testing for it, etc. I asked my supervisor if I should look into this. He turned to me and said, "We don't ask about those accounts. Just ignore them. Orders from the top." Trading account creation is a long and detailed process that requires formal approval from multiple lines of management. These accounts circumvented all that and were basically anonymous with no trace. They were also trading high volume, and I was told to accept and ignore them. A friend of mine got a job at a prominent local distillery that makes an extremely popular flavored whiskey. They literally buy whiskey from a third-party distillery and dump Tarani flavoring syrup into it. One of my friend's brothers was on the MTV show Room Raiders. Everything in the show is staged. All of the items that they would find were planted. At the end of the show, the prize was not a date with the girl that he, quote, picked, he just got her phone number. Saw the new Ferrari hybrid tech by employee error and couldn't speak or mention it until today, as they launched a new hybrid model. I can now tell you that Ferrari intends to have a car with 3 hybrid motors, and that's pretty much it. Amazon made me sign one when I worked with a company that painted their airplanes before the public knew they had them. I did the FAA paperwork. I was literally only one of like 7 people to see their airplane fully purple with their logo on it. I was actually taken off the project for a day because they thought I lied about not having a Facebook. They meant business. I signed an NDA once when I was an extra on, quote, Mortal Engines. If you watch the movie, you'll learn more than what I did on set. Posted this before if it sounds familiar. Not me, but a guy I know was on Cash Cab. A lot of it was faked. He was told he would be on a travel food show and would get picked up by a fake taxi at a certain location at a certain time. There were camera crews all over outside the taxi, and there's no way on earth you might mistake it for a real cab. Previous pharmacy chain I worked for, always at risk of robbery for opiates, and we were always taught to give the robber what they want with no questions asked. Have heard of times that pharmacists instead gave bottles of Oxy with Tylenol in it instead, and other things that were reckless and dangerous due to possible retaliation when and if they figure out they have been duped. New policy in NDA comes out where specific opiates were placed in a safe with GPS tracker and charger, so when it is removed from radius of origin, it issues remote notification to third party that tracks location and works with local LEO to find the wanted party. I worked for a native casino. The golf courses lost a ton of money for us, as did the advertising for the courses. Food we generally broke even on because of all the comps. If a crime was committed by a dealer, they would watch the dealer for 3 months to see if there were accomplices. They used facial recognition and would pair match you, so if the same person sat with the same dealer over and over, they would know. This way, they could look for accomplices. Then, when they busted you, they would sit you down and make you watch a video of you breaking the law. They did this because they wanted you to plead guilty as opposed to an expensive trial. I had to sign an NDA because I was part of a test screening for The Dark Tower with Idris Elba. Tried to tell them it sucked. They didn't want to listen. We used an extract to flavor our peanut butter porter. Oh, God, it feels good to get that off my chest. Don't forget to subscribe, and if you like Am I the Genius, you'll probably love Am I the Jerk, link down below. I signed an NDA to waitress at a local family-owned restaurant. The owner was nuts, definitely had a severe personality disorder, and was worried about his recipes getting leaked. The restaurant is dead now, and his secret recipes consisted almost solely of frozen packaged food. Edit, guys, stop trying to guess what restaurant it is. You never will. There are millions of family-owned places with crazy bosses that go under. You don't know the place, and I'm not going to tell you. Also, Mr. Krabs pays his employees enough to own houses and pets. I wish I worked for him. Signed an NDA when I worked as a fit model for Katy Perry's shoe line. Basically, a fit model is used for their good proportions to test out the fit of garments. I'm a solid size 7.5, so hooray for being average. I was hired on 2 occasions and got to hang out and give her my opinion on the fit, feeling, and comfort of different shoes. Didn't think she'd actually be there, but both times she was present and totally running the show. Super nice woman in person and remembered me when we met again. Also, she apologized for making me wait so long, which I thought was nice. It was a late night meeting as she just wrapped shooting a music video. Her dog is really cute too, and I got to save it when it got stuck behind a wall panel. Recycling company would throw away a lot of stuff. They collected the money from government subsidies while leaving the employees to a crap salary in a hazardous workplace. R/OSHA would have freaked out. That included having dirty syringes, thank God I didn't get stabbed by one, where people would sort the materials. It was awful. Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition had an amazing online character builder that made character creation a breeze. It listed all of the possible skills per race and class that was intuitive and made theory crafting for characters easy. Personal conjecture? They canned it because it took away from the pen and paper aspect of the game, and they were afraid with an online tool it'd take away from book sales. Worked for a short time as a quality assurance tester at EA and wasn't allowed to talk about the game I was testing, the console port for The Sims 4. There wasn't really much to talk about, but since the first few versions were basically just running the PC version on a console, there were a lot of bugs with it. One of the worst was a lighting bug we started referring to as disco mode, since it caused a bunch of multicolored squares to show up on everything at night or in dark areas. In 1990, I signed an NDA at Chili's when they showed me how to make their new Awesome Blossom. No other restaurant in town had anything like it, and it was hugely popular at the time. Worked at a matchmaking company. It's all bullcrap. It's just throwing darts at a wall until something sticks. There's no science or magic to it at all. Edit, I didn't work for an internet matching company, so they may have a different process. What we did was get a paid client and set them up on dates. The dates we found were from a pool of women, and we would just keep picking one after another. I quit because I felt like the women were just being used, and I became uncomfortable profiting off people's hopes. They very much play up on finding you true love and it's a process, blah blah. They'll very much play up on the fairy tale romance. It did change me. I don't really date anymore because I don't trust the true intentions of people anymore. I became very jaded to dating after all of that. Kraft Macaroni and Cheese are coming out with the more, quote, modern and upscale version to expand their market from lower income folks to higher income folks. It is almost entirely the same product as the 69-cent Blue Box, but will have a lighter, less orangey color that will be sold as shells and not macaroni. The box will be shaped differently, and it will go for $2.50 or more. Stated to be released by 1995. A certain global conferencing company still saves passwords for their web products in plain text. Any, and I mean any, employee that works there can see the password. My password there was not my pass, you idiot, because I know other people would see it eventually, and they'd even comment/laugh about it. Also, we once discovered that our main conferencing software was letting you sign in regardless of the password you entered, meaning you could sign in with any email address. Once we brought it up, we were first immediately stonewalled and told not to say anything about it in written format. TLDR, they had the dev team and legal on a conference call and they decided it was best to just keep it quiet until they fixed it later that day. No client was to be notified of the issue. And the ones that knew of it were basically given a runaround until they gave up. They also added call spoofing to the software. They called it something fancier, but it was call spoofing. You can make a call and make it appear from any number you wanted. My team raised this concern many times, but were countered with, quote, no one will actually use it for that. Okay. That place was a goldmine of security risks. There is going to be a Capri Sun sports flavor in roughly 2003. I was a taste tester for Kraft Foods when I was 10. We didn't sign an NDA, but it was supposed to be a secret. Sony got hacked over that North Korea movie because of a 5-year-old account they didn't delete or monitor from an ex-employee. Mini Cooper/BMW replaced our car because the high-pressure fuel pump failed 6 times within 6 months. However, the recorded reason for the replacement of the car was because of, quote, stained interior from dirty mechanic hands, so it wasn't replaced via the Lemon Law. A government in 1972 identified a terrorist by his wife's breasts from satellite images. That's no moon. That's a space station. I was a translator, contractor, for the US military. I also translated Marvel comic books. Marvel had tighter security. Google doesn't hire direct support employees. They open small projects in the US, then hire up to 250 contract employees of varying support positions for the project. Once they get the stats needed to run everything efficiently, they have mass layoffs and outsource their jobs to a country, Philippines/India, that's willing to accept much less than the US counterpart. At the same time, Google rakes in a huge tax cut because they're, quote, creating jobs in the local communities. Edit, yes, this includes YouTube and YouTube content review. I was actually an actor in that commercial that said I wasn't. When I was a kid, I visited the dentist for a cavity. While there, the dentist slipped while drilling my tooth and drilled a hole under my tongue. My mom saw me tense up and my dentist said, "Oh, nicked her there a bit, so you might see a little blood." I got home and after an hour, my entire neck was swollen up like a frog and my voice was squeaky because of the air pressure. A pocket of air was pressing against my heart. Dirty air at that because of the bacteria in my mouth. I was admitted to the hospital as a code 4, with the code 5 being dead. When my mom tried to sue the dentist for damages, he claimed I was kicking and screaming and out of control during the appointment, even getting his secretary to vouch for him and testify. Total BS. I liked the dentist and I was a people pleaser. Also, laughing gas. My mom's lawyer was super pessimistic and told her just to settle and sign an NDA because she had a small chance of winning. So, my mom settled, being naive and scared to take on an office full of liars. She could never disclose who the dentist was, and we've heard other horror stories throughout the years about this dentist effing up other people's mouths. It sucks because every lawyer we've talked to after the fact says we had a very strong case, and it's likely we would have won. Like, really won. I'm pretty sure the company is bankrupt now, since it's been almost 15 years and the product hasn't seen the light of day. I was interviewing with a company that was working on a new design for a public toilet that was going to change everything. It consisted of the following. 1. A pair of toilets back to back. One would rotate up into the wall where it would be thoroughly cleaned and then rotated back down so the other, recently used toilet could be swung up into the wall for its turn in the washer. 2. The toilets wouldn't have the traditional water pool, but would instead have a conveyor belt that would carry the poo and whatever else back to an open pipe, clog-free. I quickly saw that this product was going nowhere, so I declined to work for them, but sent them a 2 or 3 page email about the pitfalls of the design. 1. What happens when the auto-swapping toilet machine accidentally activates while someone is on the loo? 2. How much more expensive will this be than a regular porcelain john? 3. How hard will it be to retrofit all of the machinery and plumbing for the auto wash into existing architecture? 4. How do you intend on cleaning a conveyor belt that has been exposed to human waste plus whatever other trash that gets put down onto the unit? 5. What will an open vent to the sewer smell like if you don't have the water separation like you do with a regular toilet? Welcome to the toilet of the future. Except we're going back to the past where we didn't have indoor plumbing, but also the outhouses are floating! A huge part of The Bachelorette was scripted. The company I worked for at the time was a major tourism service provider and featured prominently in one of the seasons. We were all pulled into meetings with the higher-up managers, given a spiel about what was in our best interest, and spilling any secrets was punishable by a $5 million lawsuit. Please sign here. I gave zero craps about the show at the time. Still don't. Just wanted to do my job. The quote, Bachelorette herself was clearly there to further her public profile or quote, acting career. The scenes were always set up before filming. Behind the camera, nothing was happening. The cast were told where to go, what to do, and how to do it. If half those guys weren't on their phones texting their real girlfriends most of the time, I would be surprised. So fake. So 100% fake. Edit. Well, this is getting a lot more attention than I thought it would. Here's a few tidbits. The NDA was only that we wouldn't spill secrets about the show before episodes involving our company aired. We were also not allowed to, quote, disparage the company, which honestly was easy to abide by since we were treated well and we had excellent managers. The Bachelorette has since gone on to a fairly successful TV career, hosting several shows. All of her official press credits The Bachelorette and her exposure during another elimination-style reality TV show with launching her career. I used to work for a company in the Middle East that provided relocation services to people in America. We represented 3 main companies under 9 different names, which changed every so often when the reviews got really bad. We had receptionists whose main task, aside from damage control, was to write a few extremely positive reviews for each company every single day in order to counter all the negative ones. Our job was to catalog everything our clients wanted to move and then provide the best possible price while lying through our teeth about the service itself. We promised professional movers who had all the necessary training and tools for the job, great prices, quick deliveries, you name it. On moving day, the movers who showed up were often in unmarked trucks or ones with completely different names and branding on them. The workers were often immigrants who were paid under the table and had no experience whatsoever. The deliveries themselves often took a long time, and items were often lost as multiple moves would be stacked into one truck without much labeling of items or categorizing in general. As mentioned earlier, we changed company names fairly often as the negative reviews and bad press stacked up. Moving is a toxic business, and people will always try to undermine and cheat. This is something you should never cheap out on, as the money is well worth the comfort of knowing your move is in good hands. If you are moving, I recommend finding a company that is local if possible, so that you can meet the people who represent it and see that their business is legitimate. More importantly, they will be able to send someone to survey your belongings and give a more realistic quote and time estimate. Even if it costs much more than the quotes you receive online or from salesmen, it is well worth the peace of mind on an already stressful venture. My dad did some top-secret contract work for the Department of Defense back in the 1960s, and he signed a lifelong NDA as part of that job. He's dead now, so I guess it's safe to talk about it. The thing is, he never did break the NDA in any context. The strange part was that the NDA specifically prohibited him from using certain words ever again. The trouble is, Some of the words are common vocabulary, and it became obvious over the years which words he did not use. Words I know he could not say, because he would find other ways of saying them instead, included ball, balloon, briefcase, bomb, and nuclear. It would have made more sense for him to just say, "there's a balloon," instead of, "there's an inflatable latex object," but you gotta do what you gotta do. Eventually, he did gradually stop avoiding those words for the most part, although he would not discuss the NDA. I've worked with many internet service providers, at the past one of which I'm still under NDA for, but as for the other ones, the equipment replacement fee, divided by 3, that's how much we paid for the box versus how much we are going to charge you. If you're having an issue / something is broken and you want more money, just escalate the issue about twice for maximum return. Don't go past the supervisor's supervisor, however, because while there may be a level above them still within the call center, if you hit corporate, be prepared, because they are not required to be nice. As an example of the above, the story I tell is an angry lady who was out of service for about 6 hours. She was not happy with our get off our phone offer and escalated again. By doing so, she passed on about $65 worth of credits, 2/3 of her total bill, and a going forward discount on her total bill that would save her about $7 a month for another $80 over the next year. That was not good enough. She escalated past us, and the word came back via email. Her credit for time out of service was instead calculated down to the minute, meaning instead of $65, her new offer was now $1.12 and no discount off the monthly bill. If she attempts to escalate again, I was told to inform her we would take advantage of our service policy and cancel her account. Please return your modem within 30 days or face a $99.99 replacement charge. Had to sign an NDA for a secure shipment that came into a building I ran security at. Shipment came in at 2 a.m., unmarked transit van, 2 guys had to verify their biometrics and give me the correct password, then was required to deactivate the cameras on the floors along the travel routes they took inside the building and wipe the footage of them entering and leaving. Long play videotapes, so easy to say, "oops, tape got chewed." They unpacked a set of vases and trundled off to put them in a private vault. Don't know what the heck was in them, but I've seen less security for pallets of precious metal bullion. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories, linked at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Genius, give Am I the Jerk a shot, linked in the description too. Either way, thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.